Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku became a therapist for the Shie Hassaikai Part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see Part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story passing the friend from Wattpad. So let's start the video. So you are leaving next week to begin the new reform? Tenko asked while Yuki sat obediently by his feet. 77 The former League of Villains was all sitting together with Izuku in Inko's living room. Inko prepared some tea with 𝗬𝗁𝗖𝗄 before sitting with the group next to her son. She drank some of her herbal tea as the conversation continued. 5. Yep, I have to get a head start with the cleaning and decorating. All the rooms are already painted, and now I just have to make sure everything is just right for their arrival, Izuku commented while he wrote down some items he still needed to get in order to prepare the new house. He kept wondering what certain items could work better with the members based on their profile that he was given. Maybe Sorimitsu could have cookbooks in his room. I feel like he could be a good food tester. 2. Apparently, the Yakuza group would be staying in a new house around the same location as the other one. Izuku doesn't really understand the reason except for the fact that they needed a different structure to house all the members inside. 1. Magna twirled the promise ring on her finger as she replied, "When you are describing this, I just can't help but reminisce that you did the same for us when we didn't even know." 1. I could kind of guess it was sort of personalized when I noticed how dark my room was compared to Toga's since she showed me hers. I didn't know how personalized it was until 𝗬𝗁𝗖𝗄 told us that you did it all, Tuya responded, fiddling with his feather necklace. He was dressed more monotone than others in his black windbreaker, stone gray jeans, and ash black boots. The only color he had was the red feather that looked even more bright against his white shirt. 27 Himiko's long blonde hair swished around her shoulder as she turned to Tuya. "Oh yeah, I still love what you did with my old room in that house. I even did a replica of the BLD drips with some resin to hang in my new room." 30. Oh, Himiko. How is the business going? Iguchi asked from his seat. He wore his favorite worn-down jean jacket with a handmade button that his karate class kids had made for him. So what if it was him dressed like a Splinter from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? His purple hair was cut short a while ago and was beginning to grow slowly back to its original length. 11. Pretty good. I have been getting commissions mostly from cute horror fans that like plushies I did a while ago. But I gotta say, the furries pay more nicely than any of my other customers, Himiko answered back honestly. Her red leather jacket worked well with the rest of her cute outfit, from the cartoon syringe in her shirt to the reddish link high tops she was wearing in her feet. 97. That's good news. Izuku congratulated Himiko. Izuku turned his attention back to his notebook to write one more thing down before turning to Sato. And have you gotten any more news about the theater? Well, they are still working on adapting some sets to the script I wrote. The manager is working with me on how to really portray it through the works of the actors. A lot of things need to be finished in order for it to happen. But trust me, the project won't be ready until after you finish with the reform group you have now, Seiko responded. Seiko no longer wore a mask as he used to long ago, and his brown hair was now a bit longer than his normal short style. 34 Kumajiri hummed after he sipped from his own teacup. I wish you luck with this new group since they were quite difficult to deal with. 6. They were FPP, Jean grumbled in his seat with his arms crossed. The gray sweater that the grandmother that Himiko and Jean were renting from had actually knit him that sweater as a gift. 25 Kumajiri passed before continuing, but I have no doubt that you can handle them, Izuku. 5 Tenko nodded from his seat. I bet it will take less than 4 months. Bullshit. I say 6 months at least just because of their attitudes. Izuku might have to take a full-on month with just over I don't have hands haul. Tuya countered Tenko's bet. 115 Magna barked a sharp laugh at that while Seiko looked down at his own prosthetic arm. Inko smiled as everyone started to argue about how long Izuku would take to charm the whole Yakuza group. Kumajiri sighed at the commotion everyone was causing, which led to Jean. 1739 It took him a while to find out how exactly to fix up the house for the Yakuza reform group. The house looked like the one that the League had occupied during their reform, except bigger so it can handle the 11 Yakuza members. 3 Name: 𝗕𝗶𝗯𝗹𝗀𝗁𝗧𝗔. Food allows him to consume or bite through anything with his teeth, no matter how durable. His stomach can digest whatever he eats in seconds, causing him to never become full. But he isn't immune to poison. He will become ill if he consumes a poisonous substance. 36 Notes: part of the 8 bullets of the Shie Hassaikai. 𝗵𝘃𝗲. C. Rank Villain. He has enhanced speed taken from 𝗧𝗵𝗲 recount of the raid. He is shown to be obsessed with eating because of his quirk that never leaves him feeling satisfied. He is loyal to his boss and thinks of his teammates as his friends. Crimes: attempted murder. Dangerous. 11 Name: 𝗬𝗏𝗄𝗧𝗏 5 Larceny allows him to steal an object that is in someone else's possession and move it into his own hands. But he needs to see the object, and there is a size limit. He can disarm his opponents or remove their defenses to leave them open to his teammates' attacks. 12 Notes: part of the 8 bullets of the Shie Hassaikai. 𝗵𝘃𝗲. C. Rank Villain. He is skilled in swordsmanship and has a keen intellect. He is shown to be mentally unstable with suicidal tendencies as a result of a tragic event in his past. He is very loyal to 𝗕𝗏𝗿𝗺 and the Yakuza. Crimes: theft and attempted murder. Dangerous. For Name: 𝗬𝗨𝗧𝗏𝗏. Crystallize allows him to generate sharp, durable crystals from his skin. It is a perfect offense and defense because he can protect his body and deliver powerful attacks with his fists. 4 Notes: part of the 8 bullets of the Shie Hassaikai. 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏. He is a very tactical fighter and is able to deduce defensive strategies quickly. He is very loyal to the Yakuza and 𝗕𝗏𝗿. C. Rank Villain. 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏. Crimes: assault and attempted murder. Dangerous. 7 Name: 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃 18 allows him to cause someone to experience dizziness and lose their sense of balance as if they've become drunk. The strength of his quirk depends on the distance between 𝗕𝗪𝗏 and the victim. The effects will still linger even though 𝗕𝗪𝗏 is unconscious. 3 Notes: part of the 8 bullets of the Shie Hassaikai. C. Rank Villain. 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏. He is very skilled with knives. He is an alcoholic. Even in Tartarus, he would always try to find any kind of alcohol. He has a habit of climbing up to the ceiling and crawling around. Crimes: attempted murder. Dangerous. 26 Name: 𝗬𝗏𝗵𝗃. Vitality stealing allows him to steal vitality of others to increase his strength and size by making physical contact with them and inhaling. 7 Notes: part of the 8 bullets of the Shie Hassaikai. C. Rank Villain. 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏. He possesses great strength even without using his quirk. He is able to punch through a concrete wall without his quirk. He enjoys absorbing energy from others, which might be because of his quirk or because he is lazy. Crimes: assault and attempted murder. Dangerous. 8 Name: 𝗵𝗃𝗫𝗀𝗁 32 Strong arm lets him rotate his shoulders at incredible speed, allowing him to hit targets with a barrage of powerful punches. He can only use it for a few seconds, but it is enough time to overwhelm his opponents. 6 Notes: part of the 8 bullets of the Shie Hassaikai. B. Rank Villain. 𝗵𝘃𝗏. He possesses great strength thanks to his muscles and quirk. He possesses incredible speed and can overwhelm an enemy in mere seconds. He is obsessed with violence. He cares about nothing but having a satisfying fight to the death. He has a strict code of fighting where no weapons are used and both parties fight with natural abilities. If someone can give him this thrill, he respects them. If they don't, he wants nothing to do with them. He isn't loyal to 𝗕𝗏𝗿, ND instead wants to defeat him one day. He also proclaims that he has a code of honor. Crimes: assault and attempted murder. Dangerous. 11 Name: 𝗕𝗏𝗁𝗃𝗁 Barrier allows him to create a powerful, dome-shaped barrier around himself. The barrier is very durable. He can control the size and radius of his barrier to cover himself and a teammate in combat. It is not indestructible and can be broken by an attack that has immense power and strength. 2 Notes: part of the 8 bullets of the Shie Hassaikai. C. Rank Villain. 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏. He is calm and never loses composure. He despises violence and finds no enjoyment in fighting anyone. He considers fighting to be a selfish longing and wanting to finish battles as quickly as possible. He is very loyal to 𝗕𝗏𝗃 and hates it when his boss is shown disrespect. Crimes: attempted murder. Dangerous. 2 Name: 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗁. Confession allows him to force people to answer truthfully upon asking them a question, revealing their true thoughts and intentions. This quirk enables him to gather info, expose psychological weaknesses, and prevent betrayals. Only people with strong determination are able to break free of confession. 65 Notes: part of the 8 bullets of the Shie Hassaikai. C. Rank villain. 𝗵𝗃𝗲. He is smart and calculating due to his knowledge as a con man. He is very loyal to 𝗕𝗏𝗃 because he was very sincere with his intentions. Shin is a very formidable individual. Shin has low combat abilities. While lacking direct combat abilities, Shin does possess some level of marksmanship. Shin is a very keen individual, coupled with an analytical wit. As a former con artist, Shin has knowledge about confidence tricks and uses those abilities in conjunction with his quirk to psychologically dishearten victims. Crimes: assault and attempted murder. Very dangerous. 10 Name: 𝗓𝗏𝗁𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗂𝗁 quirk. Mimicry allows him to transfer his body and mind into an object to control and manipulate it. Normally, he can only control objects that are no larger than a refrigerator. With the drag trigger, as seen during the raid in which the Yakuza was arrested, he is able to control entire locations. He can't perceive his surroundings while inside an object, so he needs to manifest body parts other places to monitor what is going on. But when he manifests his body parts, it gives his opponents the chance to locate and attack him. Notes: the general manager of the Shie Hassaikai. B. Rank villain. 𝗵𝗃𝗲. He enjoys counting money. He has a short temper and can have intense outbursts when someone disrespects or shows threatening behavior toward 𝗕𝗏𝗃 or the Shie Hassaikai. Crimes: organized crime, drag dealing, assault, and attempted homicide. Very dangerous. For name: 𝗬𝗏𝗁𝗂𝗁𝗃 chronostasis 40 quirk. Chronostasis allows him to slow down the movements of anything he hits with his hair. His hair is shaped like minute hands that slow the target's movements for 1 minute. The hair that looks like hour hands will slow movements for an hour. He can only extend hair when he isn't moving. 9 Notes: the aid of the Shie Hassaikai. 𝗵𝗃𝗲. He is very stealthy. He can stay in a room undetected for some time. He is one of the most trusted allies of 𝗕𝗏𝗃. They have a close relationship. Shown to have no remorse for the harm that 𝗕𝗏𝗃 has put upon others. Very dangerous. 2 Name: 𝗧𝗏𝗃𝗁𝗂𝗁𝗃 𝗕𝗏𝗃 92 quirk. 𝗕𝗏𝗃 allows him to disassemble and reassemble anyone/anything through physical contact. He can kill people instantly with a touch of his hands. He has control to a certain degree. He can revive people from the dead by reassembling their body back together as proven by 𝗵𝗃𝗃's statement. He can also use quirk to fuse with other people and actually use their quirk. 6 Notes: the boss of the Shie Hassaikai. B. Rank villain. Sociopathic 𝗵𝗃𝗃. He is shown to be sociopathic from the way he acts toward things. He would do anything to make things go his way. He is shown to have enhanced speed, enhanced durability, and keen intellect. His big plans were for him to become the next ruler of the underworld after 𝗕𝗏𝗁 was arrested. He wanted to destroy all quirks to bring society down and restore the Yakuza to its former glory by using the quirk-destroying bullets made from a little girl. He is a megalomaniac who couldn't be pulled away from his twisted plan. Sources say that he is a suspect of being the one to place the old Yakuza boss under a coma. He also has mysophobia. He thinks everyone is sick and hates being touched. He wore gloves in order to curb the effects of his quirk, which implied he had no control over activation. His arms were destroyed in the way to his imprisonments in Tartarus, which resulted in him losing his arms completely. When police arrived at the scene with the heroes, Chisaki was screaming in anger and pain with his arms nowhere to be found. He was treated for his arms before finally going to his Tartarus cell. He has temporary mannequin prosthetic arms to help him while eating, but they are very weak. Crimes: mass murder, mutilation, child abuse, torture, drag dealing, and organized crime. Extremely dangerous. 88 So these are them. The Yakuza group is known as Shie Hassaikai. 13 Izuku thought long and hard about the time he was going to spend with them. He knew that they were going to be different than the last reform group that became his friends. He spotted some different ways to approach them right in their file, and it was up to him now to do this right. Speaking of them, Izuku heard the old familiar sound of a large vehicle pulling up before driving away. He could almost hear the muffled conversation that they were having at the front of the house, much like the League last time. "I'm going to hope they don't kill me," Izuku whispered to himself before smacking himself on the cheeks to pump himself up before going to greet them. 9511 They didn't know how they got there. They only knew that the White House looked clean enough on the outside. It has bulletproof glass windows all about the wide 3-story house. It was over for them a long time ago when the heroes defeated them in a raid. They had managed to make Sir Night-Eye go into early retirement from the severity of his chest wound, but they all got arrested in the end. 47 now years later, and they found out that the League of Villains got reformed before them just last year while they were stuck in prison. One now it was just the 11 of them standing in front of a large white brick building in the middle of nowhere in a forested area. No people or heroes with any quirks within a 100-mile radius. Each person wore a heavy-duty quirk erasing wrist, ankle, and neck cuffs that didn't allow them to use their quirks at all. Each person except Overhaul, who was remained quirkless since his arms were taken from him. Nevertheless, he still had cuffs on his ankles and neck that wasn't quirk restraints. 36 They really couldn't imagine what would happen to them, but this kind of solution was nothing they thought. Now had to go through with the same reform program the League went through. Well, it as either that or prison, so they would basically take anything at this point. 𝗕𝗶𝗯𝗹𝗶 mumbled, "Can I just eat it? Wait, no, I got F-quirk cuffs. This sucks. I can't taste anything except the air." 13 Sakaki slurred, "I don't want to know what's in there or who's in there, but they better have some alcohol in there. It has been way too long since I had a sip of sake." 15 Setsuno looked around curiously, "So where's the guy that's supposed to welcome us into this hell program? Did he quit already?" 5 I don't know where the supposed therapist might be. I didn't think they would just throw us in the middle of nowhere," Tengai stated, looking up at the house. 1 Maybe this is just a whole disguise. This is just one big joke and they just wasted our time so they can arrest us as soon as we walk inside. Rappa ranted, "I'll kill them if that is the case." 10 If you could even get close to them. Hojo added, "But I wouldn't put it past the heroes to do something like that to us. Just playing with us with the hope of getting out only to throw us back in." 2 Rikiya yawned out of boredom while staring at the house. 1 Nemoto nodded softly, "This is unnecessary. I can just go back to my prison cell, I don't care. I don't want to stick around a therapist that will spill lies from their mouths. They will promise us a bright future when we all know that it is a lie." 25 Irinaka tilted his head at the sight, "I don't like this." Kurono sighed, "We all don't enjoy what is going to happen. I just feel pity for whoever has to deal with us." 14 Chisaki glared at the house. "It better not be as filthy as the outside world." 11 The Yakuza group watched as the large door was opened to reveal a curly green-haired man. "I'm Midoriya Izuku. I'm going to be your caretaker for now." Izuku greeted with a bright smile as he opened the door wide to welcome them in. "Welcome to the house. Come on in, everything is ready and cleaned up for your arrival," Izuku greeted, opening the big doors wide to allow Fit Rappa and Rikiya inside as the Yakuza group walked in. The house was modified to fit all of you inside. 9 Great, I hate it here already. 20 Is it really cleaned or did he half-assed it? Chisaki murmured to Kurono, sticking closest to Kurono's side. He kept his distance a bit away from the large group of his members. 5 Kurono looked around before tilting his head towards Chisaki. "I don't know. He might have done anything while he was waiting for us to arrive. I can look around to make sure." 2 Chisaki clicked his tongue behind his mask. 5 I can give everyone a tour if you all want it. It won't take too long, Izuku said. "Is that all right with everyone?" The members looked back at him in silence while Izuku waited for any sort of answer before Toya shrugged. Rikiya looked the most comfortable with a tour. Maybe it was just because he wanted to see where he can sleep. "Okay then. I'll start on this floor." Basically, This is the living room as you can already see, Izuku started, gesturing over to the basic living area. There was a television mounted on the wall. The wall was painted a modest yellow that looked much better than the beige walls that they grew familiar with Tartarus. There were 2 large blue sofas, a recliner, and 2 beanbag chairs set aside. And there was a wide bookshelf in the corner of the room near a small hallway. The area looked very welcoming just from the color scheme. Izuku gestured over to the kitchen area that overlooked the living room. Over here is the kitchen with a fully stocked pantry. If you are ever hungry, you can find a lot of options to snack on. If the pantry is ever running low, I can always request that more food be brought in. 11. Down this short hallway is 2 doors. Izuku continued with a 2-fingered point down the small hallway past the living room area. The left door leads to the room where the therapy session will take place. It's my office. The right door leads to my bedroom. My door is always unlocked when I'm in my room. If I'm not in my room, the door is locked. 33. Izuku leads them over to the stairwell on the opposite side of the kitchen. The supply closet is over there by the stairwell. That's where you can find the cleaning supplies if needed. I will clean the house once a week, but if you need any cleaning supplies, go ahead and borrow from the closet. 11. Chisaki eyed the closet before locking his eyes back in front of him to pay attention to Izuku's moves. He needed to see if there were any weak points to exploit to get out of here as quickly as he could. 48. Kurono stood in between Chisaki and the others. Izuku led the large group up the wide staircase. Chisaki didn't touch the railing of the staircase, paying more attention to where he stepped. 𝗕𝗏𝗍 watched patiently from his spot as Izuku started to introduce them to the second floor with the most deadpan face out of everyone. 7. And this is the second floor. There are a total of 6 rooms on this floor as well as the 3rd floor. As you can see, there are 3 rooms on either side. Izuku gestured for them to see the green pristine white doors on either side. This is where 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗎, Hojoyu, Setsuno Toya, Sakaki Didoro, Tengai Hekiji, and Rappa Kendo will be staying. 3. And next will be the 3rd floor, which is our last stop. Izuku reminded the group while Hojo and Toya gave a glance over to their rooms. Rappa looked the most disinterested as he trudged past the doors while 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗎 looked at his door in dismay at seeing he was placed next to Rappa. One Rikiya groaned as he had to climb the stairs. His movements became more sluggish with each step he took. Rappa turned to him only to grab his shoulder to drag him along with the rest of the group. Meanwhile, Sakaki was eyeing up the ceiling to see if he could climb anywhere while he was there. 12. Izuku introduced, and this is the top floor. This is where Katsucame Rikiya. I have to climb all the way up here just to sleep. FL. I hate it here already. I will claim a couch in the living room as my bed, I don't care, Rikiya grumbled as he dragged his hands down his face. 6. Nemoto Shin, Iranaka Jui, Kurono Hari, and Chisaki Kai will be staying. There is an extra room across from Chisaki's down this hall. Right now, it's just a storage room that is mostly empty. And that's basically it for the house. Let's get back down to the living room. Izuku ended off with while 𝗕𝗏𝗍 made enough room for him to scoot past to lead them back down the stairs. Stairs again. Why couldn't there be an elevator or something? Rikiya grumbled, gripping onto the railing as he trailed behind Rappa and 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗎. 13. At least you aren't stuck with Rappa as a neighbor. I'm not happy about being stuck with your stuck but either, Rappa grumbled back, passing the 2 to catch up with Sakaki. I doubt that this therapist is genuine. If only I had control over my quirk to question him about his true intentions with this program, Nemoto complained quietly to Iranaka. 36. He better not talk SHT about the Yakuza. That's all I'm concerned about. He better not treat us as less than people. 1. As far as we know, this therapist has reformed the League of Villains. We have no idea what exactly he is capable of. Let's approach this cautiously before going to strike him down in any way, Kurono responded from behind them. 11. Chisaki piped up, we need to further analyze our situation before planning anything. We need to find out the inner workings of this house before striking. Keep your patience. 16. Izuku clapped his hands together with a calm smile once they had all made it to the bottom, right back to the 1st floor. Okay, that is basically the whole house, Izuku explained, Any questions about anything? I can answer to the best of my ability if you needed to know anything. For 𝗵𝗏𝗍 narrowed his eyes. What makes you think that we won't hurt you? 9:16 Izuku blinked. Excuse me. 1. We have over 11 people here and only one of you. What makes you so sure that we won't be able to overpower you easily? 𝗵𝗏𝗍 asked with his chin rested in his hand. Kurono face-bombed while Chisaki mentally sighed. 12 Izuku tapped his chin in thought. Well, there is a number of safety precautions that this program site has. If you try to run away from the reform, you won't get far. There are safety precautions all around the property to alarm anyone that you are escaping. We have about a 1-mile radius around the house that everyone is allowed to walk if they want it. You will know if you hit the end of the radius because of the barrier set all around. If you pass the barrier, officials are informed immediately and will send reinforcements straight away if that ever happened. It will lead to possible options as being returned back here with even more restraints put on you, immediate disqualification of the reform chance program, and etc. Iranaka grumbled at his explanation while Rikiya just looked bored. Kurono reserved his surprise to look back at Chisaki to see the wheels turning in his head. It was obvious that this precaution would put a large obstacle on their escaping plans. Izuku spoke up again while the group fell silent once again. Just to let you all know, there are many reasons I am here for this reform. I'm not just a dummy that had beginner's luck if that's what you think of me. There is a reason why they wanted me to take care of this program myself. What is the reason? Iranaka asked sharply from his spot beside the hunched-over Sakaki. 5. Well, I wasn't a full therapist the first time, but I had enough knowledge about being a therapist to do my job. I have actually prepared fully this time and actually finished my course online to gain my official license. But the reason why I was here the first time was the reason I'm still here. And I can take care of myself in this situation. So what? You aren't a child anymore. Is that the only requirement that they have? Rappa laughed, looking down at Izuku because Rappa was taller than the young man. All right, little man. You do understand that each of us could beat you in a fight. 5 Izuku raised a brow while keeping his calm composure. Do you have full confidence in that? Everyone here is in quirk suppressant cuffs except for me. And overhaul as well. 21 Rappa banged his fists together. I have enough strength to beat you into the ground. And I have no doubt about that, Rappa-san, Izuku responded back with a calm smile on his face. But you do have to understand the severity of my words. Do you really think that the heroes would send some defenseless therapist to the middle of nowhere surrounded by villains? Do you actually think that they would send someone that couldn't handle themselves? 2 Rappa raised an eyebrow under his long red hair that was covering most of his face. Izuku turned to address everyone. I'm here to help, not hurt. I won't try to brainwash you into following the heroes if that is what you are worried about. I'm not here to demean you. I'm patient and I'm willing to wait no matter how long it takes for any one of you to trust in me enough to open up. He waited in the silence for a moment before speaking up again. Now, what do you guys want for dinner? I know how to make a few dishes and we have the pantry filled with food. You got any sake? Sakaki asked quietly. 7 Izuku shook his head. Nope. I did have some the last time in reform though, but you won't find any here this time. 26. Not even in your room. Sasaki questioned with a slight slur to his words. Are you keeping that good stuff to yourself? Izuku replied back. No, I am not. Now to dinner. Any requests? Kurono hummed. 𝗕𝗶𝗍 spoke out for what seemed like the first time since they got there. Anything with flavor. Tartarus was basically serving bland dishes for each meal. 1 Izuku smiled. No problem. I'll make some beef curry for dinner tonight. For 18 Setsuno claimed a beanbag chair on the floor with 𝗕𝗶𝗍 while Sakai relaxed on the tall bookshelf in the corner. Chisaki leaned against the wall with Kurono near him. 𝗵𝗏𝗍 was flipping absent-mindedly through a book that he grabbed randomly from the bookshelf. Hojo was staring up at the ceiling while 𝗕𝗏𝗍 looked to be praying by himself off in a corner. Rikiya was already sleeping on the couch with a bored Rappa next to him. Iranaka was busying him with counting the number of tiles on the kitchen floor while Izuku bustled around the kitchen to cook a large dinner. 14 It seemed to take forever for Izuku to make the dinner. But it seemed to be worth it by the looks of the meal in front of them. The beef curry looked so good, especially since prison food was not that delectable. Everyone sat around the kitchen and living room area. Chisaki ate his food the quickest out of everyone, and he washed his plate thoroughly as everyone continued to eat their dinner. They listened as they listened to the non-stop sounds of scrubbing and the water running. After Chisaki finished cleaning his plate and rinsing off his prosthetics, he thanked Izuku for the meal before heading back upstairs. Kurono finished up his food and cleaned up after himself not long after Chisaki returned to his room. 69. Everyone continued eating in silence. Rikiya ate the slowest while Rappa started to treat it as a one-sides competition between 𝗕𝗏𝗍 since 𝗕𝗏𝗍 was almost done as well. Hassaikai was nursing his ginger ale like one would treat a glass of wine. Meanwhile, 𝗕𝗏𝗍 remained the most silent of them all as he slowly chewed his food, which didn't go unnoticed by his concerned teammates. The three were seated a bit away from everyone in the living room, sitting against the couch. "Hey, are you okay? I have never seen you eat this slowly before." Setsuno looked over to his friend. Hojo piped up from next to him, "I second that. Is something wrong with it? Does it taste weird or something?" 𝗕𝗏𝗍 spoke up, "The opposite actually." "Huh." The two replied at the same time. 𝗕𝗏𝗍 swallowed, "Would it be bad to say that I actually like these cuffs?" 26. What? Setsuno questioned with widened eyes. "What exactly do you mean?" "I just mean ugh. My quirk has always made it possible for me to eat anything. But I have never truly tasted any of the stuff I ate. It just felt like nothing could ever satisfy my never-ending stomach. When they first put the cuffs on me in Tartarus, I thought it would be different since I could taste now. But all I got was unsatisfying bland food that I never looked forward to. But now, I can actually enjoy something." 𝗕𝗏𝗍 admitted. The two noticed as a silent tear trailed down 𝗕𝗏𝗍's cheek. "I can actually taste this. I can taste the spice of the seasoning, the juiciness of the beef, and the overall savory flavor. I feel satisfied for the first time in a long time. My stomach is finally going to become satisfied and full from dinner." 122. I won't say that I'm looking forward to what this reform program might do this to us. But I am looking forward to the food I get to taste during it, 𝗕𝗏𝗍 commented. Setsuno smiled. "That's great for you, 𝗕𝗏𝗍. I don't really know what to expect with this whole program, but this Midoriya dude doesn't seem like a pages. 40. Hojo shrugged. "Well, we will get to know him soon enough since we won't get out of here anytime soon." "Yeah," Setsuno answered. Izuku glances over his shoulder at the smiling teammates while he started to wash the dishes. He knew that this group will take longer than the first time with the league, but he hopes that he can bring out the best in them. The next day, the Yakuza members were headed up to the first floor to meet up. They didn't want to go downstairs at the risk that their therapist would hear them. "For, why are we all up here again?" Hassaikai asked, stumbling over his own feet as he climbed the stairs. He was too sleepy to attend the meeting that 𝗕𝗏𝗍 woke them up for. One Rappa looked up from his wrists, drawing attention away from the fact that he kept pulling at them. "No idea. Rikiya doesn't want to get up from his room though, so I guess he will listen through the door." "Are you trying to break out of the cuffs, dude?" Setsuno asked, tilting his head down at Rappa who was leaning against the wall from his position on the floor. "I'm just trying to stretch my wrists." Rappa rolled his eyes while struggling against the cuffs on his wrists. "Of course I'm trying to get out of them. But apparently, I get the extra strength ones since I'm not even making a dent. I think Rikiya got the same ones like me from the sheer size difference between ours and yours." 46. Setsuno looks down at his wrists. "Yeah. Mine is smaller than yours. But I can't even get my finger under them from how snug they are on me." One Rikiya opened his door, slumping out of his door. "Is everyone here yet? Can I just go back to sleep?" Setsuno. "No, you may not," Kurono announced as he opened the door to his own room. Overhaul is listening from his own quarters as he starts this meeting. "Thank you, 𝗕𝗏𝗍, for bringing everyone here." 12. Why are we here so early? We need to form a plan to try and escape without bringing attention to our plan. I can only assume the group before we tried and failed, and that is why they got reformed, Kurono stated. The others glanced over at their boss room, wondering why he didn't want to come out. But we can't get a good grip on our situation until we see what is actually at stake. From what Midoriya has told us yesterday, We can establish that we have a limited amount of range to roam. 22, yeah, didn't he tell us that we only had a 1-mile radius or something? And that there is a barrier? 𝗵𝗏𝗍 questioned out loud to the others. Irinaka brightened up. Yeah. We would just need to see what we have with our own eyes. Kurono nodded. Correct. Today, I want to explore where exactly the barrier is and where does it end. We need to find out any possibility we have to escape over or under the barrier. We need to know if we can't turn off anything or destroy the barrier altogether for us to escape. Hojo raised a brow. How are we going to do that? How about we have Midoriya show us? 𝗕𝗵𝗃 asked with a shrug to his shoulders. He would know the layout better than us. Oh, come on. That wouldn't work. 3410, sure, I'll be happy to give you an outside tour. Midoriya replied happily. 𝗕𝗵𝗃 looked over his shoulders smugly to the muscled man behind him. Setsuno and Hojo hid their smirks as well behind their hands from the look on Rappa's face. 1 Rappa muttered, don't you say it. 2, that would be great. I wanted to see just how much room we really have on this property, Kurono said. No problem. Is everyone coming? I think we are missing a few people. Ah, Kurono sighed. Rikia wanted to sleep in some more, and Overhaul wanted to stay in his room for right now. 5 Gotcha. Well, if everyone would like to, I can give you a tour now, Midoriya responded. 𝗵𝗏𝗍 piped up from his spot. It would be preferable to do it now. Midoriya asked, is everyone okay with that? When he saw that everyone nodded their approval, he made his way towards the front door of the house. Kurono gave everyone behind him a look as Midoriya led the group outside. 9. Why did you take a sudden interest in an outside tour? Midoriya asked while he led the group around the grass area surrounding the house. 2. I wanted to see just how far we can roam. I can guess that the boundary is visible so we know where the territory ends. Yeah, the boundary surrounding us now is visible. Can I see it? Rappa asked loudly from the back, getting a shove from 𝗕𝗏𝗃. He bent down to 𝗕𝗏𝗃 so he could whisper harshly back to him. Midoriya could catch a few words by reading his lips. Rappa said something about getting the tour over with before straightening back up. Midoriya looked back at him with a slight hint of understanding in his eyes. No problem. The boundary is only about a mile walk from the edge of this area. It shouldn't take long to reach it. But remember about the consequences of trying to pass it. Yeah. Whatever, Sakai groaned, dragging his feet at the back with Irinaka beside him. 𝗵𝗏𝗍 sighed as they start to make their way into the surrounding trees, avoiding the overgrown foliage hanging all over the place. About 10 minutes in their walk, Sakaki is climbing through the trees while everyone else is still on the ground. Kurono is doing the most to avoid any stains anywhere on his clothes while 𝗵𝗏𝗍 has swatted his hands all around him to get rid of any bugs flying near him. 6 About 20 minutes in their walk, Midoriya had a bird in his hair at one point that made him pause at his stride for a moment to allow the bird to fly away. 𝗕𝗵𝗃, Hojo, and Setsuno were trying to keep themselves entertained while walking by using the tree roots as stepping stones. It was like they were playing the grass is lava or something because they were bored. 𝗕𝗏𝗃 looked like a tried soccer mom at this point while trying to deal with Rappa wanting to punch through trees to make their journey faster. 30 It took them about half an hour of leisurely walking through the trees to get to the boundary at last. 5 This is it? Hojo asked, craning his head back to look at the tall fence in front of them. The fence was made of stone on the bottom with the rest of it being made of brick. Kurono could spot the hidden camera hidden at the very midpoint of the wall from the way the sunshine reflected back at him from its spot between the bricks. Izuku clasped his hands together. Yep. This wall can detect us even right now. It has cameras and sensors that react to the quirk suppressant cuffs. The walls have been smoothed down as well, so it won't be easy to climb either. 29 Irinaka surveyed the boundary, looking for any weak spots. He grunted when he couldn't see anything. 𝗵𝗏𝗍 asked, did the previous group get the same treatment with this wall in place? They did have a tall metal fence around the area with the same cameras and sensors, but it wasn't this reinforced, Izuku replied back. Although it wasn't really needed since they didn't really venture too far off the grassy area surrounding the house. So this is what it looks like. I'm just curious, but what would essentially happen if one of us gets across this? What would happen if is a Series of events. First, the sensors would send off a signal as soon as it recognizes that you are attempting an escape. It won't sound off right away until the cameras realize that you are trying to go over. Right away, the pro heroes are notified and are snugged straight to the location. If you make it across, they will still use the sensors in your cuffs to locate you in the rest of the forest. Once they do, you are even sent back to the house with even more restrictions put onto you, or you are completely removed from the program and brought back to Tartarus. Izuku explained. 10. Wow, Setsuno spoke up from his spot leaning on a tree. Well, I have seen enough today. Can we head back now? I'm getting kind of hungry from all this walking only to see a boring wall. Hojo nodded. I'm not against ending the tour here. Everyone else? 𝗕𝗶 patted his stomach. Kurono steadied his gaze on the wall before turning away with a sigh. Thank you, Midoriya-kun, for bringing us here. No need to thank me. I'm happy to help, Midoriya responded with a knowing smile as the others all turned away to start walking back to the house. Based on the advice from Shigaraki, he has to keep a close eye on what other plans to escape the others came up with. He was growing more curious by the second to see what they would come up with next. For right now, he would still keep up a more clueless facade. 52 Nemoto looked up. Sakaki, get down from the trees, Navir. A mumbled voice answered back from above them. Rappa grunted before thrusting an arm into the branches to grab Sakaki by the hair. Oh, pulling hair is not one of my turn-ons. 90 Setsuno stifled laughter while Midoriya hid his own soft smile at the sight. 31-7 When they arrived back, Rikia was laying down on the couch with the television on. Chisaki was standing in the kitchen with a glass of water in his hand. 11, back so soon? Chisaki greeted. Kurono made his way towards him, keeping a safe distance because of the dirt that must be on his clothes. Rappa beelined his way to the couch, sitting down next to Rikia while taking up the rest of the space of the couch. With everyone back, Izuku made lunch for everyone by making quick sandwiches. One after lunch, 𝗕𝗶 came up to Midoriya. So you are supposed to be our therapist and everything. When do the sessions exactly start? It starts any time someone wants to talk. If you want to, I would start a session now with you in the office. Both Setsuno and Hojo looked up from their half-eaten sandwiches. Setsuno has his sandwich halfway to his mouth while Hojo had his sticking out of his own mouth. 𝗕𝗶 thought for a moment. Can we start one now? 42 Chisaki looked over his shoulder at their interaction while Midoriya nodded back at 𝗕𝗶. No problem. With a wave at his friends, 𝗕𝗶 followed Izuku back to his office. Kurono took the opportunity once he saw the door shut. Alright, everyone who has finished eating, make your way to the 3rd floor if possible. I want to see what exactly we can do from here. 6 Rikia groaned from his spot on the couch while Rappa rose from the couch. Can't we just do it here? I don't want to climb up all those stairs again. Dude, look on the bright side. You would be right outside your bedroom so you could sleep right afterward. Rikia looked up. You always say the right things. 19 Rikia extended his hand to Rappa, who pulled him up from the couch. Hojo and Setsuno exchanged a look with each other. We'll just stay here. You can fill us in later, Setsuno called out. Iranaka gave them a nod before following right after Chisaki up the stairs. 6. So Sora Mitsuo 𝗕𝗶 correct. Midoriya clicked his pen with a flourish. 2. Yes, 𝗕𝗶 answered back, looking around the office in wonder. The office was simple with a couch that 𝗕𝗶 was sitting on across from a chair. In the middle of them was a wooden table with rounded edges that had a few thin magazines on them. He could see a desk tucked into the far left corner while a few bookshelves were on the far right. Midoriya asked gently, Are you comfortable with me referring to you as 𝗕𝗶-kun? Or would you prefer something else? 14 𝗕𝗶 looked back at Midoriya, who was sitting across the table with a calm smile. 𝗕𝗶-kun is fine. Alright, let's begin the session. 31. How was your life growing up? Izuku started off. 11 𝗕𝗶 breathed in. It was okay, I guess. I don't really remember much of my early years. I could remember that I went to the zoo with my parents before everything started to change. I remember being happier. Izuku looked at 𝗕𝗶 with a sense of understanding. Was it around the time you manifested your quirk? Oh, definitely. My parents didn't really understand my quirk. It wasn't really similar to theirs in any way where they could at least begin to relate to it in some way. It was kind of a mutation since they couldn't really find anywhere in the family with anything similar to it, 𝗕𝗵𝗃 explained, twiddling with his hands. His fingers ran over the smooth sides of the 𝗧𝗏𝗃 suppressant cuffs that acted like brackets around his wrists. 5. I was scared when I first manifested my quirk. It felt like my whole face was stretching out the entire day before my mouth just grew larger. And then I just felt this endless hunger. I couldn't stop eating, 𝗕𝗵𝗃 continued, choking out a laugh as he remembered that day. My parents came home to find me in the kitchen with everything eaten, even some of the utensils that I dragged out from the top drawer. After that, I got my quirk diagnosis from the doctor, and everything just slowly started to shift. Izuku waited in silence as 𝗕𝗵𝗃 recollected himself. Can you elaborate a bit? Only if you feel comfortable. 𝗕𝗵𝗃 nodded. I'm good, man. So everything started to shift from then on. The friends I made in class called me ugly because my face was so scary from my huge mouth apparently. It didn't help that the hunger I had to deal with was causing me to lose sleep, which is why I have these permanent eye bags. I had to start wearing a scarf of face mask to school or out in public because I didn't want people staring at me. 51. My parents were trying in some way to try and help. They got pills to help me sleep at night, and they started to just buy rice in bulk. But they still didn't really see me the same. They started approaching me like I was a zoo animal that they had to tame with food. And the worst part is, I never felt satisfied ever. At night, I would sneak out of my window and start eating branches off of trees because it never stopped. 𝗕𝗵𝗃 took a deep breath before continuing. Life at school was pretty bad. I was always hungry and I couldn't really stop being hungry. Teachers wouldn't let me eat any snacks in the classroom, so I started to eat paper to calm my stomach down at least a bit. At lunch, I would start going from table to table and eating the leftovers that people left behind. I got nicknamed raccoon from the other kids. 60. And then my father left when I was just starting middle school. They got divorced, and from what I heard from over the phone conversations, he left for a younger woman. But my mother always just loved to blame me. She blamed me for a lot of stuff, 𝗕𝗵𝗃 chuckled bitterly. How it was my fault that he left. How it was my fault that she had to take on 2 jobs because she had to pay for the amount of food I kept eating. How it was my fault that we had to move to another place to save money. I guess that's why she left me for her new boyfriend when I was in high school. 35. Izuku listened intently, focusing on how 𝗕𝗵𝗃 kept rubbing the smooth metal bracelets around his wrists that surprised his quirk. It seemed like he was comforted by them, like they kept him grounded. For 𝗕𝗵𝗃 hummed, I graduated soon after she left since she left a month or 2 before I completed school. A month after I graduated, the landlord wanted rent, but since I wasn't able to pay so then I was just homeless. I tried to find work with my diploma and stuff, but I kept getting fired for one reason or another. I was a janitor at first before they caught me eating food from the lounge. Then I was a worker at a fast food place and they kind of used me as a trash disposal. If they messed up an order, they just threw it at me to eat. It lasted for a while before it went out of business because they failed a health code inspection. And after that, I couldn't really find any work. 11. No one really wanted someone who kept getting fired and could eat their entire pantry in less than an hour, 𝗕𝗵𝗃 joked. 13.7 Meanwhile, the upstairs had most of the members in a meeting of sorts. 𝗕𝗵𝗃 heavily sighed with 2 fingers pressed to his temple. Hassaikai, can you get down from there? Never, Hassaikai mumbled while he tried to stay in the upper corner of the large room. He uses his long legs to catch onto a windowsill to keep himself there while he tried to balance himself with Rappa's shoulders since he was one of the tallest ones. 24. Let's get this meeting started, Kurono. I can guess this meeting would be about different plans we can try. That would be correct, Chisaki states coldly. I do not wish to be here just to fit into this filthy society. 2. We are here to brainstorm and come up with several plans. Our plans of escape are very limited unless we all work together and somehow get these cuffs off, Kurono explained. Rappa. 5. Not working. I have been trying to get out of these cuffs since I got them. But they won't even budge. I even tried to use a back scratcher I found in my room to try and wiggle free. Nothing. Rappa replied. Did you try butter? I heard that works with slipping off rings off of fingers. That works with fingers, not my big butt hands, 𝗵𝗃 quipped back before adding in a hushed tone. I tried lotion and hand sanitizer, both of them didn't work. 8. Great, option 1 has been crossed out, Irinaka groaned. Is there a key or something we can try and find? 6. A key, Hassaikai muttered from his spot up high. With a stumble, he fell on top of 𝗵𝗃 before slumping to the floor. Key lime vodka would be amazing right now. 2. Yeah, I did notice that we have like this little holes at the bottom of the cuffs. There might be a way to hack into it with a bobby pin or something. I tried to use a bobby pin. The DMN thing has some sort of scanning thing inside or something because I saw a red light from the inside, Kurono added. Nemoto raised his head, so we have to find a specific key that the therapist might have. If that is the case, it's either in his office or his room. And once we get the key, we could knock him out. He can't take all of us at once, Rikiya commented. 𝗵𝗃 cracked his knuckles, or I can fight him. 16. Kurono exchanged a glance with Chisaki. Either way, he needs to be unconscious, so he can't call for backup. We unlock our cuffs and make a run for it. But that can't be our only plan, we need other options if it doesn't work out. How about we do something like gain the trust of the therapist? Hassaikai thought out loud, dragging his fingers on the floor like he was drawing pictures. His words were less slurred and more slowed, like he was trying to keep his voice steady. We all talk to him one by one. Make him think that we are eventually making our way to reforming. Ask more about the program, all that 𝗧𝗵𝗲 Nemoto spoke up. That might work. If he thinks that we are reforming, he might get relaxed around us more. The more relaxed he is, the more he is willing to talk to us about stuff like why are there holes in our cuffs? If there are keys for our cuffs, you know. 2. Chisaki stared steadily at Nemoto before turning back to Kurono. That might work in our favor. Make the therapist believe we are trustworthy before turning our back to this whole program entirely. 20. Agreed, Kurono nodded. Onwards, let's brainstorm what we need to do to accomplish this goal. 𝗕𝗶𝗃 has already started his session. Who would go next? I bet the other 2 that aren't here will be next. They will probably trust the therapist enough if he takes care of 𝗕𝗶𝗃. Those 3 care for each other the most since they are closest, Tengai said with closed eyes as he remained a few steps away from everyone. Setsuno will follow first and Hojo will most likely come second. Setsuno will be more willing to talk openly if 𝗕𝗶𝗃 trusts him, and the Hojo will follow afterwards. This is only if the therapist makes any connection to 𝗕𝗶𝗃 and where the tree are coming from. 𝗵𝗃 grunted. I'm still wondering how the hell that the therapist dude even sealed with the League. I want to see how strong that he thinks he is. How the hell did he even deal with that Shigaraki guy? 63. Chisaki tensed at the League's leader's name. Kurono noticed Chisaki's tense form and decided to move on to the next topic faster. The League relied on their quirks. We have strength and power together. 𝗵𝗃, I would advise to not start anything with the therapist just yet. We don't want to raise suspicions to any of our planning. We can't cause a scene so early just in case. 22. 𝗵𝗃 groaned, running his hands down his face. 9. 𝗕𝗶𝗃-kun. Are you okay to continue? Yeah, I'm still good. I forgot where I left off for a second. So, I didn't see a point to living. I just saw myself as trash that society threw out because I didn't fit, 𝗕𝗶𝗃 said, bringing his hands to cover his mouth for a moment. Then Overhaul came and gave me a place. That's where I met Setsuno and Hojo. We bonded over that fact that we were all pushed aside like trash. I found a sense of self-worth when Overhaul thought I was worthy enough to help him in his goals. I just couldn't believe that he found my quirk actually useful. 1. Your quirk is really interesting. 15. Wait, what? What? Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's fine. 𝗕𝗶𝗃 gave him a curious look. I was done anyway, but what do you mean my quirk is interesting? My quirk has always been weird to others. I'm actually thankful for these cuffs so I don't feel the unending emptiness of my stomach. 1. Well, I always like to learn more about quirks. I have been interested in them since I was little. I have a bunch of analysis on different quirks, Izuku states honestly, rubbing the back of his neck. I do understand that your quirk, however, has a lot of drawbacks, including the never-ending hunger that leads into you having a lack of sleep. But I do think that it is very interesting how you can eat anything. Izuku continued, and not only your quirk, but you have a lot of more qualities about you. You have an impressive amount of speed that allows you to evade a flurry of attacks completely unscathed. You are very skilled in quick movements and evasion. And I can tell you have a respect for your leader and a strong trust with your friends. Why yeah. I guess. 𝗕𝗏 stuttered for a moment, bringing his hand up around his mouth once again. I didn't realize that you thought of my quirk like that. I just always thought of it as more of a gluttony. Curse. 9. I think more out of the box like how you can help, Izuku replied. 1. My interests have been piqued. Please continue, 𝗕𝗏 leaned forward. 6. It took what seemed like an hour or two before the two figures came out from the office to see Hojo and 𝗧𝗏 waiting on the couch for their friend. The two couldn't help but notice how 𝗕𝗏 looked more relaxed when he approached his friends. 13-16. After a long time of planning out, the other members decided to head down and rejoin the other three if they were done. The group came down from the upstairs meeting to find 𝗕𝗏, 𝗧𝗏, and Hojo all sitting down on the couch together. They seemed to be talking very closely with Izuku, who was relaxing his arms on the kitchen island. Nemoto narrowed his eyes at their interaction, especially when whatever Izuku had said sent 𝗧𝗏 backwards. The group listened as they approached the four quietly. 𝗕𝗏 held up his hands. Wait. You are saying that your literal mom embarrassed you in front of one of the infamous villain groups by showing them your baby photos. 71. I'm dying. I'm dying from crying so hard. Oh Cammy, take me now, 𝗧𝗏 called out breathlessly from his place on the floor in front of the couch that Hojo and 𝗕𝗏 were sitting on. 8. I don't even know how you could continue with your lessons after that. Wouldn't they not take you seriously after that? Hojo questioned. It happened near the end of the program. So I didn't lose as much cred with them. Izuku paused to put air quotes. 𝗧𝗏's laughter quieted down to silent whimpers as he tried to regain his senses. I think they all adopted my mom as theirs by the end of it. 14. I can't with this, 𝗧𝗏 mumbled from the floor, crawling back onto the couch. 2. She sounds like a lovely woman, Hojo commented. Izuku smiled. She is? She is the best mom I could have asked for. Wait, did she actually adopt the League of Villains? I have to know, 𝗕𝗏 asked, smiling wide. 3. Of course she did. Well, not legally. But she is taking care of them like they were her own children, Izuku answered back easily. That's so sweet, Hassaikai replied loudly, slumping into the recliner chair, interrupting the conversation. Izuku calmly turned his head to see the group of Yakuza members that was slowly making their way to the living room area to sit. Overhaul stayed near the wall as always, keeping his distance from the others. Kurono leaned against the wall next to his trusted friend and leader. Rikiya laid down behind the couch since the three friends were already there. It was a bit peaceful with Izuku thinking over ideas for dinner while still standing in the kitchen. Rappa decided to disturb the relative peace. Hey, therapist dude. Yes. Izuku answered, looking up from the kitchen counter. What exactly is stopping us from leaving? Rappa asked loudly. A loud slapping noise echoed through the silence. Chisaki looked over to find the sound came from Kurono facepalming. Izuku blinked back at him. Well, the wall is the first barrier like I explained. The larger man waved him off. Yeah, whatever. I meant with this entire program. What's stopping us exactly from just saying that we quit? Well, nothing is really stopping you from quitting. I'm not going to try and stop your decision if you want it, but I will try and persuade you to look at your options, Izuku began. Izuku continued, if you take the way out, you never even once have a chance like this again. You will be stuck in Tartarus for basically the rest of your life. With this program, you have the chance to better yourself and return to society with almost nothing holding you back. If you really doubt it, just look at the program before you. The League of Villains fully reformed and returned to society with nothing holding them back. They all have jobs that they absolutely love working at. And they are still meeting up at least once a week in some way to keep contact with another. So what you saying is, if we leave we are basically disrespecting the Yakuza by admitting that we aren't as strong as the League. Iranaka asked, forming his own conclusion from Izuku's words. Well, I'm a proud part of the Shie Hassaikai and I won't disrespect it. I will not be considered the weaker ones compared to the League of Villains. Many other agreed with Irinaka while 𝗧𝗲 looked down with everything. Izuku could see that 𝗧𝗲 really couldn't care less from the way he didn't really react to Irinaka's words. So I guess if I wanted to leave, it would be like throwing a fight, 𝗧𝗲 said to himself, almost like he was weighing his options. Rikiya thought about it, I guess. If you want to take it that way, 𝗧𝗲 punched his fists together. Well, there is no way in hell I'm losing a fight. Give me everything you got, therapist dude. 17 Okay, this wasn't what he expected, but it's nice to see everyone more willing towards the program. At least a little. Izuku glanced up at some of the members in the room like 𝗕𝗓𝗓 and 𝗵𝗏𝗏. He knew that convincing some of them would be harder than others. But he was in it for the long run. It didn't matter to him how long it would take. What mattered is the lives he would change in the process. And with that last thought, Izuku picked some pepper, salt, garlic powder and onion powder to season the pork. Meanwhile, the judging eyes of Chisaki followed his every move in the kitchen, analyzing his body language as he prepares to start cooking dinner for everyone. 59:13 After the dinner of seasoned pork and rice, everyone eventually branched off to call it a night. Sakaki crawled up the stairs after Rikiya, who looked like he wanted to just sleep on the stairs. 𝗕𝗓𝗓 followed after Irinaka, who was talking to him about something. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 eventually got up to leave to his room when he noticed that Kurono and Chisaki left earlier. 7 The night ended with the three friends huddled together after wishing Izuku a good night before he retired to his own room. Hojo started, so he is different from the therapist at Tartarus. Those guys just made me feel bad for using my quirk in such ways, but he came up with so many ways that I could use my quirk. He asked questions like if I was able to bite through metal. He was truly interested in what I could do. I told him how I felt about the cuffs. 𝗕𝗏𝗄 paused. He said that when we reform, if I wanted to, he will make sure to get custom quirk suppressants made for me like a thinner pair or something. He said, when? Setsuno asked. And it wasn't condescending, it was like he actually believes that we aren't trash. Like we have our own purpose. 𝗕𝗶𝗄𝗏 commented, looking back at Izuku's room and back at his bracelet-like cuffs. He might have just convinced me to give this program a shot. The next day, Izuku woke up to his alarm right on time, slamming his hand down to stop the loud music that was coming from the alarm radio. He stretched his arms over his head before grabbing his charging phone on his bedside table to check if there were any messages. And to his surprise, there were a couple of emails that was recently delivered. Rubbing his eyes slightly, Izuku went to his email app on his phone to see what the emails were. He immediately deleted any emails that were just spam and notifications about stores that were having discounts. 13 He responded to his mother's email to update her on what was going on and that he was safe. He smiled when he wrote out his response to Himiko that said how she had sold out of her crocheted strawberry-themed bees and that she was saving the money for more supplies. Mr. Compress sent out a small outline of his play to ask for some advice, so he made a mental note to check over it later that day and email back when he got the chance to give him some tips on it. After that, he just checked over the rest of his emails and texts before finally getting up from his bed to get ready for the bed and whatever it might bring. 16 After he got himself ready, Izuku walked out to get some breakfast only to see Hojo, Setsuno, and 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗏 all together standing around the kitchen island. They lazily ate their yogurt before glancing up when they heard him coming closer. Mornin', Midoriya, 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗏 greeted while Hojo nodded at him. Setsuno yawned while he waved half-heartedly towards him. We got hungry so we came down here. Are you just now getting up? Midoriya shrugged. I was awake for a while, but I just didn't want to get out of bed. 45 Setsuno looked down at his yogurt. I know the feeling. 3 Hojo patted the smaller man's shoulder. 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗏 looked upstairs, wondering what the group will do now. He knows that they weren't really happy that they were acting close to him until they realized that they could get information about Izuku out of them. 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗏 looked back at Setsuno, knowing that the other wasn't having a good day. Hojo and he took him downstairs to hopefully cheer him up. The others were planning something that they weren't telling the other 3 in detail about yet. Hey, therapist man, Setsuno mumbled over to him. Hojo looked up when Izuku greeted him back. Look, I don't want to bother you, but is it okay for me to have the net session or whatever? Not for today, but maybe like tomorrow or something. 10 Sure, no problem. You can come talk whenever you want, Izuku reassured him. 𝗧𝗪𝗍 nodded before leaning his head on his arms. Hojo dragged Izuku into a conversation about which animal would be a better pet excluding cats and dogs. 𝗕𝗵𝗯𝗹𝗵 and Hojo were very intense about their argument about what their preferred animal would be like as a pet. Izuku was calmly arguing for his choice of a ferret while Hojo loudly exclaimed how snakes would be awesome. 𝗕𝗵𝗯𝗹𝗵 brought up birds into the conversation, which made everyone think of what exact species of animal would be better. 1:12, and that's how the rest of the Yakuza arrived later that morning to see Hojo and 𝗕𝗵𝗯𝗹𝗵 in an intense argument about feathers while 𝗧𝗪𝗍 quietly watched from the couch. 3. The rest of that day flew by without any major happening. Izuku noticed how some Yakuza members like Nemoto and Kurono would watch him carefully as he exited out of his bedroom and office. It was like they were waiting for him to mess up with something for them to exploit. 3. Wow, he hasn't felt that since he worked with the League. Ah, fond memories. 52:10. It wasn't until 2 days afterward when Midoriya was approached by 𝗧𝗪𝗍. In the morning, 𝗧𝗪𝗍 was waiting for him by the kitchen counter with a calm expression. Hello. Good morning, Midoriya greeted. Hey, can you do the thing? The session thing? 𝗧𝗪𝗍 asked patiently. Oh, you want to talk? Izuku said. Okay, no problem. What time did you want? Can we just start now if it's not too much to ask? 𝗧𝗪𝗍 looked towards the room where he knows 𝗕𝗵𝗯𝗹𝗵 went in last time. I just to rant about stuff right now. For sure. We can get started right away, just follow me, Izuku responded, gesturing for 𝗧𝗪𝗍 to follow him back to the office. 𝗧𝗪𝗍 hesitated in his steps before he walked away with Izuku back to the office. He followed the other inside the room and relaxed on the couch opposite of where Izuku was sitting. He adjusted his legs to sit more comfortably while Izuku calmly waited for him to state when he was ready. Okay, I'm ready. Let's get this going. Alright then. You are comfortable with 𝗧𝗪𝗍-kun, correct? 𝗧𝗪𝗍 nodded. Izuku smiled in return. Then, let's get started. Now just start with whatever you want to start. If you don't know where start from the very beginning. Alright, I guess I'll start with what I can remember. I don't know my parents, I think they died or some SHT when I was young. I grew up in foster homes until I aged out of the system. 𝗧𝗪𝗍 stared off. The foster homes were pretty okay. They just did the minimum most of the time. I would get ignored by any foster siblings since they didn't want me to swipe their stuff. Other than that, nothing really big happened. I wasn't abused or anything like that. At most just ignored most of the time. 16 in school, they nicknamed me Swiper, which I wasn't that mad at since it sounded cool. They didn't find my quirk that villainous, they just thought it was pretty useless unless I became a villain. But it eventually grew from teasing to actual bullying when they noticed I was a nice target that didn't fight back. Guys would accuse me of stealing their stuff with my quirk when the teacher wasn't looking. Girls would do the thing where they write fake love confessions, so when I got there all hopeful, they would make fun of me for believing them. Do you know what that is like? To feel so hopeful that there is someone who likes you only to get there and see their smug face while they admit it was all fake. 59 Izuku nodded. Yes. It happened to me before when I was in middle school. You feel so happy only to have that hope crushed in front of you. 3 𝗧𝗪𝗍 furrowed his brow. I honestly didn't think you would know what that felt like. He paused, looking deep into Izuku's expression to see if he was lying. You aren't just pulling my leg, right? Izuku shook his head. I'm not joking with you. I wouldn't make something up just to relate to you. I have experienced having fake love letters in my lockers only to show up on the rooftop and discover it was a joke all along. There was a separate time where they locked the rooftop doors and I had to call someone I knew to come to get me. 48. Well, looks like we are two peas in the pod regarding that, huh? 𝗧𝗪𝗍 joked. After high school, I got a little job at a grocery store and a cheap apartment. And then I met a girl. 𝗧𝗪𝗍 took a deep breath while rubbing his hands down his face. When we first started dating, I fell in love too quickly. I acted like a complete idiot with her and she had me wrapped around her finger like an oblivious fool. We were together for what seemed like a long time and I thought nothing was wrong. I thought that I was in love. She felt like someone I could share my life with. I thought she was my everything, that we could make our own family that I never experienced. I was planning on proving to her with a ring I saved up for. But then everything came crashing down around me. Setsuno scrunched up his face as he thought about the past. His hands clenching at the memories that started to resurface. His hands shook for a minute before he calmed down. Izuku waited patiently for as long as the other needed to continue with his story. Setsuno sighed. She left me for another man with no warning at all. Well, I shouldn't say no warning, since I had seen the way she interacted with him when she kept saying that he was just a friend that was reconnecting with. But she left me with no money at all in my account and debt from the apartment we shared. I didn't know what I did wrong. I was ranging from asking myself what I did wrong from yelling at myself for believed any word that she said to me. 7. I continued to work until I started to slack off. Because of what happened, I started to fall asleep on the job. Coworkers accused me of stealing since I admitted that I had nothing. I was fired soon after even though I pleaded that I needed the job. I was at my lowest, so I went to a professional to see what I could do with some money I had to steal from other people on the street. They diagnosed me with depression and anxiety because of what happened in my life leading up to that point. I couldn't afford the medicine they suggested to me, so I just sat in my apartment eating dollar store ramen until the landlord eventually kicked me out into the streets. 12. Izuku wrote a little note on his clipboard. Okay, let's review this. Can you tell me a bit more about what you were feeling at these times? Only you feel comfortable with that. 10. Hojo yawned as he made his way downstairs only to see 𝗕𝗏 looking around the drawers. 𝗕𝗏 kept rummaging around inside the drawers and cabinets, taking out multiple items. Hojo could see small spice containers as well as a bottle of soy sauce. Hey, what are you doing? 1. Oh, good morning. I think Toya-kun is talking with Midoriya in the room. 𝗕𝗏 replied nonchalantly as he inspected 2 almost identical-looking bottles. He shrugged before adding them to the growing horde of containers on the kitchen counter. I heard them talking when I came downstairs to see where Setsuno was since he wasn't in his bedroom. What are you doing up this early? 1. I was thirsty. Hojo shrugged as he walked into the kitchen where 𝗕𝗏 was still rummaging through the drawers. What are you doing in the kitchen? I was looking around to see what I can snack on before lunch. Since I can taste food without feeling like I need to fill an empty void, I want to experience all the flavors this place has, 𝗕𝗏 responded, grinning wide with his teeth shining bright back at his friend. Now, I think I'm just going to hit up the spices since I don't want to eat everything in the fridge. Ooh, and condiments too. 13. Hojo raised a questioning eyebrow. Are you sure that's a good idea? Condiments and spices only taste great when there is food involved. If there is no food, you might be in for one hell of a ride. 31. You want to join me? 𝗕𝗏 asked, holding a bottle like a pointer right in his taller friend's face. Hojo took one look down at the ranch bottle in 𝗕𝗏's hand. Sure, why not? 64. Setsuno breathed out a giant sigh when he leaned back on his couch. He smirked at Izuku. Wow, that took a lot out of me and we aren't even done yet with my tragic backstory. 15. Izuku laughed a little at the other's joke. I think you stopped the main story when your landlord kicking you out. Yeah, that dude was an old b. Setsuno laughed a bit before quieting down to continue. Anyway, I got kicked to the curb with only like a backpack of belongings since the ex already took almost everything with her. Anything that she didn't take I had to sell for extra money, so I didn't have much left to my name. With everything that happened, I lost hope. I lost hope that I would ever have a normal life. I didn't have a family that supported me. I didn't have a love that would be by my side. I didn't have a job, a home, or any money in my bank account. The only thing I had left was debt. 13. Setsuno continued. I started to live in the streets. I would sometimes sleep in this beaten-up bus in a junkyard or at this beach filled with trash. I would steal food from stores or dig through dumpsters to find something I could use or eat. I would steal cash from people walking by. I wouldn't take the cards though because I would have been caught easier that way. It was difficult living on the streets. I was either constantly running or was constantly alert because I didn't want anyone to steal from me when I went to sleep. 5. It was dark for a long time. I started to think about how it might be my fault that she left. I just felt worthless, like I was only just a piece of trash that the trash bags have yet to collect. I just felt like a waste of space. Setsuno took a deep breath in, And I thought that the best way to get rid of that feeling is to get rid of myself. 21-5 Hassaikai moved swiftly down the stairs after resting in his room for longer than he expected. Once he got downstairs, he noticed that not many people were down there except for two in the kitchen. Creeping closer, he saw that 𝗕𝗏 and 𝗬𝗏 were in the kitchen with an array of spices and condiments on the table. Blah, I didn't realize soy sauce was that salty. So much sodium, 𝗕𝗏 states before licking at a small pile of spice on his palm. Why is the pepper so spicy? 20. What's going on? Hassaikai slurred his words because he still felt a bit sleepy even though he couldn't go back to sleep like he wanted to. 𝗕𝗏 washed his hands quickly with water before continuing to a condiment bottle. What's all this mess? We are tasting some of this stuff, 𝗕𝗏 explained, tasting a bit of ketchup from a spoon. That tastes different than what I expected or exactly like how I expected. I don't know how to describe it. Just a lot of tomato taste. 25. Why? Hassaikai tilted his head, spotting a bottle of cinnamon. 𝗬𝗏 winced at the taste of garlic powder on his tongue before hearing 𝗕𝗏 cough from the peppercorn he just bit into. 16 𝗬𝗏 shrugged. For fun. Hassaikai smiled at a sudden thought that appeared in his mind. He pointed at the bottle. Hey, try some cinnamon. I know it tastes so good because I love cinnamon whiskey. 55 𝗬𝗏 looked down at the small container. I never tried it without it being on dessert like cinnamon rolls. It's just lovely. Just take a big dash of it. It tastes amazing. Be warned, there is a bit of a burn, although that might have been because of the whiskey, Hassaikai replied with his chin prompted onto his hand. He smiled as he watched 𝗕𝗏 and 𝗬𝗏 tap a slightly bigger amount into their hands. Go ahead and try it. 59 𝗕𝗏 and 𝗬𝗏 looked at each other and shrugged. They brought their palms up to their mouths and practically threw the big amount of spice into their mouths. In an instant, they could tell that they should not have entrusted Hassaikai. 63 𝗬𝗏 was the first to fail immensely. He started coughing instantly, a brown cloud of spice coming out of his mouth. His hands braced himself against the counter before he started to make a run for the kitchen sink. He bent his head down to take in the cold water coming from the faucet. 𝗕𝗏 was more delayed in his reaction. It seemed like he couldn't tell that it was burning until he started to softly cough, which turned into more aggressive coughing. He slowly walked to the sink behind 𝗬𝗏 with his hand covering his mouth. 𝗬𝗏 noticed his friend also needed relief, deciding to move to grab a hold of the sink sprayer. 3 Hassaikai laughed hysterically as 𝗬𝗏 frantically handed the sprayer off to 𝗕𝗏, who was currently drowning the inside of his mouth. 23-6, so I wanted to just end it because I didn't want to be part of it anymore, you know. Life sucks. But before I could, 𝗕𝗏𝗏 found me. And he said that I could be worthy trash if I helped with his idea of making a better world than it is right now. So I agreed. And that's when I met 𝗕𝗏 and 𝗬𝗏 after 𝗕𝗏𝗏 brought me back to one of the headquarters. After that, we all kind of bonded because 𝗕𝗏𝗏 found us and made us a bit more than trash. 25 Setsuno sighed loudly. I can't lie. It kind of feels good to let go of all of that. Thanks for listening. Izuku smiled. It's no problem for me. If you ever want to talk with me about almost anything, you can come to talk to me. So, therapist dude, Setsuno looked to him seriously. Midoriya, I am curious about some things. What is it? Well, the first thing is that 𝗕𝗏 said that kind of helped him about how he was feeling about his quirk and stuff. Like you didn't really judge him and stuff. Why did you do that? Setsuno asked. 3 That's easy. I like to help out in any way I can. And I kind of know how it was like to be treated by your peers differently. I know how they would be so judgmental about what your quirk was or what you looked like. I can relate to that. Like how I know the feeling of being fake confessed to, Izuku laughed. That was actually one of the more lighter side of things my old classmates did to me. Setsuno's eyebrows raised. Really? Does that mean you are kind of like us? Like trash? Setsuno, you aren't trash. Neither you, 𝗕𝗏, 𝗬𝗏, or anyone here is trash. I don't consider you to be worthless or useless trash. I would never see anyone like that, except for Endeavor, he left unsaid in his inner thoughts. I will just say that I know a bit more of a personal experience about how you and others were treated because of something that you couldn't control. 42 Setsuno started at him. 𝗕𝗵𝗃 told me something you said about there is no such thing as villainous quirks. 10 Of course. We got into a discussion about how the quirk doesn't make someone a villain sometime father. Our official session ended. Izuku replied back. 3 Setsuno questioned, what about my quirk? My quirk literally is stealing things. With that, I could only be a criminal or some low-level villain waiting to happen. Not true at all. Your quirk is actually kind of interesting. If you want to look about it in a different light, just think about what you could do with it without any bad intention. Izuku bit his lip while thinking about ways to use his quirk in different ways. He started to ramble on about some possibilities that he thought off the top of his head. You could steal a gun out of a robber's hand, so the person getting mugged has a chance to run. You can steal any kind of weapon out of someone else's hand to save someone's life. And you can do some awesome magic tricks to entertain people. 23 Setsuno stayed silent for a moment before smiling at the corners of his mouth. What am I supposed to be when I get out of here? 8. That's up for you to decide in your new life. It will be a new leaf for you to start along with your friends, Izuku said. 3. You know Midoriya, you are kind of cooler than I thought you would be. 25 5 Izuku opened followed after Setsuno into the living area only to see Hassaikai sitting in the kitchen counter with a smug look on his face. 𝗕𝗵𝗃 and Hojo were hunched over on the couch, which made Setsuno automatically rush over to them to figure out what was wrong. Izuku was concerned as well until he noticed the familiar brown powder spilled on the counter that wasn't cleaned up yet. Izuku looked back to the other two on the couch. You ate cinnamon, didn't you? That is dangerous for your throat and lungs. 20. Relax, they didn't eat that much, it wasn't even a spoonful. Hassaikai talked slowly with a pen almost Cheshire cat-like grin on his face. 1. I hate you, Hojo glared back at him. Hassaikai looked flattered. Thank you. 36 Hojo watched how the others talked amongst themselves the following nights. He noticed how they seemed to be watching Izuku's every move, especially when the trio of them starting to have a good friendship with him. 8. They had learned from overhearing that Izuku struggled with depression and anxiety when he was talking to Toya and 𝗕𝗵𝗃. Toya related to him about those issues a lot, each of them sharing a few small stories about dealing with it in their ways. Izuku opened up about how he used to paint to get out his frustrations and depressive thoughts to make it artwork. 3. Kurono tried to pry more into what Izuku was admitting in 𝗕𝗵𝗃 and Toya's sessions only to receive nothing from them. They had simplified about how they just talked to Izuku about their life and how he made them feel better. The boss just sighed deeply since they didn't get anything promising from the trio. 6. Hassaikai was still delighted that he had tracked them into doing the old cinnamon challenge. Hojo was still holding a grudge against the other, trying to see how he can enact his revenge. Hassaikai was going to get revenge served extra cold, straight from the freezer. He doesn't exactly know what to do yet, but he will find out a way. 21 Hojo took notice of how others were feeling when seeing how they interact when eating dinner. Kurono always stayed near Chisaki, never talking with anyone else. He heard Rappa grumbling to Rikiya about how he feels the need to just fight something or someone and how the others were holding him back. 6 Irinaka was as annoying as ever. Shin wasn't as annoying as Irinaka, but he was still a kiss-ass to Chisaki. Tengai was just there. They are mostly just keeping to themselves since they don't really interact with anyone but the boss. 1 But the 3 of them. They were doing just fine. 2 𝗕𝗵𝗃 talked about the spices he tried with Hojo to Toya while Izuku cleaned up in the kitchen. Hojo just listened mostly to them chatter amongst themselves, offering his thoughts about the spices when 𝗕𝗵𝗃 brought them up. He can tell that Rappa is slowly becoming more and more bored of each day passing by. Hojo has noticed him trying to get the others to fight with him these past few days only for them to decline. Rikiya fought with him, but he always surrenders early since he gets tired easily from it. And he could tell that Rappa was slowly becoming more and more antsy to fight, but he still respected the others' wishes to not fight against him. 21 The other thing he started to notice was the fact that his friends are doing better after talking with Izuku. They started to warm up to the idea of reforming, the idea of leaving behind their past to have a better future. He is like, I'll talk to him since both of my friends are feeling better about themselves. Maybe not as trash, or maybe my friends are leaving me behind. 2-9 It was a normal day. And Hojo decided it was a perfect time to strike. 20 The rest of the members were upstairs for some kind of eating to discuss yet another plan about escaping. 𝗕𝗵𝗄 was drinking warmed milk with some cookies that were in the pantry. 𝗧𝗪𝗼𝗀 took a little cup of yogurt while Izuku was planning out lunch by looking at ingredients in the fridge. What? Hey, Hojo. Good morning. Do you know where everyone else is? Izuku asked. The rest are upstairs talking about something. They will come down for food eventually. Hojo replies, Hey, can I talk to you now? Are you sure? Yeah, I have been thinking over it for a while. You have treated my friends with a lot of respect, so I can trust you. So I believe I am in good hands with you, Hojo answered back honestly. 2. Okay, you can head inside my little office down the hallway. Hojo nodded at Izuku's words. We'll be out here, Hojo. 𝗕𝗵𝗄 loudly stated for his friend to hear. Hojo waved at his two friends as he headed down the hallway while Izuku grabbed a drink from the kitchen. 𝗧𝗪𝗼𝗀 called out before Hojo closed the door, Don't worry, we won't watch that 𝗕𝗵𝗄 documentary without you. 24 Hojo wilted in the room for a few moments before Izuku walked inside with a water bottle for both of them. 𝗕𝗵𝗄 and 𝗧𝗪𝗼𝗀 looked at each other. What do we do now? Well, I sure as hell don't want to attend the meeting. Those always end up being dumb. If there is anything important, Rikiya will tell us if he isn't napping when it's over during it. 𝗧𝗪𝗼𝗀 tilted his head. 1 𝗕𝗵𝗄 hummed, You want to see how many channels this TV has? 𝗧𝗪𝗼𝗀 shrugged, Sure. But when Izuku comes out, we have to ask if there is anything else in here we can do. 48 3 Izuku nodded. Okay. Just to be clear, you are alright with me calling you by Hojo or Hojo-kun? 6 Either is fine by me, Hojo answered simply. Alright. Let's begin whenever you are ready. If it makes it easier, start when you were young and work your way up to now, Izuku explained with a soft smile on his face. Okay, Hojo sighed. My life was okay, I guess before my quirk came in. I had a mother and a father who kept working throughout the day to pay off some debt that they had to pay off. Apparently, they had a lot of gambling issues before I was born that they still hadn't completely paid off yet. So they didn't have enough time to take care of me, so the older neighbors usually watched over me since they both retired early. For Izuku paused in his writing, Were they nice to you? How were they as caretakers? They were cool. They didn't try and hurt me in any way, Hojo answered. When my quirk came in, we were having some sort of quick fast food dinner that they picked up that was already cold. I ended up having crystals on my finger because I accidentally got a splinter on the old wooden dinner table. I'll never forget the look of joy on their faces when they realized that they could profit off the crystals I could produce. They immediately started to celebrate that they would finally get rid of their debt. Hojo paused, pursing his lips together. I think that was the first time I remember them hugging me. 16 Izuku glanced up at him. What happened after that? After that, they finally started to treat me like their son and not just another mouth to feed, Hojo replied. They got me new toys and new clothes that fit me. I started to make crystals for them when they asked as they gathered them up in large trash bags to take to some jewelers or something to sell them. I just remember them taking large bags out the door with huge grins on their faces until they came back with the same bags with the blankiest faces. They hit me across the face with one of the smaller bags filled with the crystals I made. They hit me again to push me into the closet while I started to ask why and what happened. My father shouted at me through the door to make some new crystals that were actually worth something. Hojo looked up at the ceiling for a few moments. Izuku waited patiently, just looking down at his paper and making a few doodles in the margins. It took a few minutes before Hojo restarted the story he was recalling. I don't remember how long I was in there, just that I was so hungry. They tried to force me to make a different kind by making it stronger or a different color, but I couldn't do that at all. 12. They let me go eventually and gave me bread and water before sending me off to my room without a second glance at me. I kept wondering what happened and why would they hit me for something I couldn't do. They guilt-tripped me into things like stealing money and food away from old people since I was young and they wouldn't suspect a thing. I gave them anything I could get so they could start paying things off more. They took away the new toys and clothes they got me, so they could resell them along with their clothes. 10. They made me keep up with that until one day I woke up to an empty apartment. I thought they were just at work, but I found out a few days afterward when I saw no sign of them. When the landlord came to collect rent, all he saw was me eating some ramen while listening to the radio. Hojo paused to clear his throat. The neighbors who babysat me just took me in after that. They didn't really have any children, so I became their orphan to take care of. They were just an old couple who couldn't really keep up with what I wanted. They had multiple bills already and I felt like a burden on them because I basically got into their care out of nowhere, Hojo said. He cracked his knuckles a bit while continuing with his story. So I started to give the lady my crystals to sell to her old friends at the book club to make into jewelry or something. I didn't want to feel like worthless burden to them, so I figured I could just repay them with the crystals I made. That helped her pay for groceries because the book club they liked costume jewelry more than the real kind. Did she ever force you to make more? Izuku questioned, scribbling done on his paper. No, she kept saying that she was fine and that I didn't have to make them for her. But I kept insisting as I grew older because it wasn't like I was going to do anything with them. But she wouldn't take them anymore. She said that I should do what I wanted with them. So I started to sell them at school when the teachers weren't looking. Hojo chuckled a bit at the memory. It was a very secret business where you had to meet me on the roof to buy some for 500 yen. I made sure that the 6 knew that the crystals weren't worth much because I sold them for cheap. I kept it up until like middle school since I wanted to start fresh at high school. 9 Hojo frowned harshly, but I ended up getting involved with some controlling people in high school. One that threatens to hurt my caretakers if I didn't provide the crystals for free. But they thought they were like really good quality. They wanted to pay back some debt that they had with some gang. I already told them it wasn't worth that much, but they thought I was lying. What happened, Hojo-kun? Izuku asked. Hojo looked up. When they found out they weren't, they cornered me in an alleyway and beat me half to death. 1094 Kurono cleared his throat to grab the attention of the Yakuza members in front of him. Chisaki stood at the front of the room with Kurono right behind him. Chisaki's yellow eyes were fixed on the remaining members of his group. I personally called this meeting to discuss future tactics with the therapist individual we are currently dealing with. Chisaki began with his most loyal members waiting on his every word. Kurono listened from his side as Chisaki took the lead for the meeting. Our previous plans have failed, Kurono said. What we know is the fact that we can't get out of our cuffs without a special key of some sort that the therapist must have or at least know of. We can't escape without having heroes coming here because of the fence around the perimeter. What if we just kill the therapist? Shin asked with a shrug of his shoulders. Rappa sighed loudly from his position near the back. It was loud enough for Rikiya to glance back at him. 11 𝗓𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗃. We don't know much about him still. We don't know how powerful he is, seeing as that the heroes trust that he can take care of villains in this reform program. 22 Rappa sighed louder, cracking his knuckles. He stood up from his uncomfortable seat on the floor to stare down the 2 men at the front of the room. You know what? I'm tired of this. Rappa, sit down, Kurono demanded from the front of the room. Shin narrowed his eyes at the larger man. Calm down. Don't make a fool of yourself. 2. No, I'm done with all of this. What's the point of this? Any plan you come up with won't end up going your way. Rappa said like he was stating the obvious. 5. How come you sound so sure about that? Irinaka huffed. 2. Look at us. Look at where we are right now. The last plan that 𝗧𝗵𝗃 over here had was to not freak out at all or plan anything ahead of time since he was so confident that his plans would continue. 20. Don't you all remember that meeting on where everyone would be set up? Now, Rappa paused for dramatic effect to gesture around the room at the walls and pointed at the window. He whipped back around to stare at them. Where are we again? Rikiya whispered. Rappa? Oh, that's right. We are in a reform program. But where were we before this? Tartarus. Anyone remember that? Rappa, that is enough, Kurono ordered. Were any of us free? Did anyone escape just like Overhaul thought he and Chronostasis would? Just like how the leader thought that he can just leave all of the expendables behinds, right? Rappa clapped his hands on his thighs. He barked out a short laugh. No. We all got put into Tartarus except now the so-called fearsome leader is down 2 limbs. 28 Chisaki stared at him coldly. This is no time to deal with your foolishness. 5. What are you going to do? Hit me. With what? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 questioned, tilting his head. 𝗎𝗏𝗼's eyebrows furrowed as the annoyance grew within him. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 continued, "Come on, let's see if you can kick high enough to reach me with those bony legs of yours. I don't want to be pity slapped by your plastic arms. A claw machine would put up a better fight than you." 118 Ting aside, calm down. I don't want to see your boorish behavior. What is not like he is going to use his quirk? Oh wait. You don't have one now. Do? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 questioned loudly with a grin. Poor little leader doesn't have a quirk to his name anymore. Boo-hoo. 44 Chisaki glared at 𝗵𝗃𝗃, his right eye twitching while some other members stared at 𝗵𝗃𝗃. Hassaikai held back a giggle begin his hand, knowing that he might get slapped by one of the most loyal members. Rikiya looked like he was about to argue with him before shrugging. The whole point of me joining this stupid gang was to fight you to the death. It's not manly to not keep up your end of the deal. I came here with the sole purpose of getting rematches with you to finally beat you, but I couldn't because of your quirk. You were a strong opponent, emphasis on were. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 ranted. 15 He reached for his unruly red hair with his scarred fists. All I wanted was to get a good fight. And now I can't even have that anymore. So what's the point? What's the point in staying here in this pathetic Yakuza group or this reform program? If you all want to go so badly, then just shut up and go back to prison. Why do you keep up this charade as you could actually escape and go back to the Yakuza when we all know that it is useless? I'm tired of all this planning SHT that won't even work. 16 The members in the room looked between 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and their leader. They were waiting for any orders from their leader who was staring at the old fighter like he was planning his death. Kurono looked down to see Chisaki's prosthetic arm shaking, so he reached down to pinch the fabric of his sleeve near his elbow to calm him. The simple pinch grounded Chisaki enough to stop shaking from the overwhelming anger he felt. 5 I'm done, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 stated coldly. Consider this my official resignation from the Shie Hassaki. We might be in the same house, but I will no longer be part of this Yakuza mess. Final thoughts. 𝗎𝗏𝗼 is a SHT leader who never should have been given the position in the first place. Chronostasis is the only one willing to put up with his SHT for that long, so respect for that. Shin and Irinaka are just kiss asses. Rikiya, you're cool, I have no complaints about you. Ting, shut the F up just once in your goddamn life and live a little. You have as much personality as a bland cracker without any sort of salt on it. Hassaikai, you're not as annoying to me as the rest of these F-airs, but you are a cool drinking buddy. See ya. 87 And with that, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 slammed the door on the Shie Hassaki. Once the door slammed, Hassaikai couldn't hold back his laughter any longer while Rikiya was trying to hold back the guffaws coming out of his mouth. 5 The other members frowned at the door in distaste. 15-4 I was in that alleyway, just clutching at my stomach to stop the bleeding. I felt like my body was on fire. I could just taste the BLD in my mouth. They left me behind after saying that was just as worthless as the trash bags surrounding me. I just felt like I was dying and that there would be no one who would miss me. I had the caretakers who basically raised me, but I don't think they would miss me for long. 2 Izuku paused his lips, writing in his notebook again. And sometime soon, 𝗎𝗏𝗃 found me. He looked down at me like the trash I was and just reformed me using his quirk. Hojo took a breath. It hurts like hell though. Like really hurt, but it was over in under 10 seconds so it wasn't that bad. He continued to tell me how he needed someone like me for his group. And I joined because, well, he saved my life already and he was giving me a new life. Then I met the rest of the members including 𝗕𝗏𝗃 and Setsuno. We formed a bond being trash. And the rest is history. Izuku hummed. If you do not mind, can you tell me a bit more about your quirk? You seem to put it down quite a lot, but I find it interesting. Interesting. My quirk grants me the ability to produce crystals from my skin. They are sharp and durable, but they aren't worth anything. Did you shave your head for you to be able to easily produce the crystals there? Yes, I did. Do you not like your quirk? You talk about yourself as trash and how your crystals are worthless. But I don't see either of those qualities. 8 Well, my crystals are useless to sell, but they offered me good protection when I needed it too. I don't necessarily hate my crystals, I just really hate the people who kept trying to use it for their profit when they couldn't. Hojo rubbed his bald head. If I ever come across them again, they are getting these sharp airs shoved up their nose. 2. Izuku laughed before covering his mouth to stifle it. And why do you consider yourself trash? Again, you don't need to answer if you aren't ready. Hojo shrugged. I'm expendable. I was a burden all my life to my parents and then to my caretakers. That's why I bonded with 𝗕𝗏 and Setsuno so well. But they consider themselves as trash anymore because of what you have been helping them with. That's why I wanted to talk to you in the first place. I wanted to see for myself. Did you get your answer yet? I don't know yet. Hojo shook his head to clear his head. What exactly could I do with my quirk crystals? Izuku whistled as he looked down at his notes to list off possible ways. You can become a very good jeweler. Most teens these days don't want diamonds, they just settle for glass sculpted like diamonds. Your crystals can be used for weaponry like a blade for self-defense because of their durability. It would provide excellent cover to any vulnerable person walking home at night. They have small businesses who would kill for a material that is as sharp and durable as your crystals have proven to be. 7. Izuku continued while Hojo looked a bit stunned at the way he was easily explaining everything. So you can become a great costume jewelry maker. Artists would love to pay for your crystals for their work. And even if you don't want anything to do with a quirk like I have seen others do, you have the strength to deal with a lot of stuff. You can be a security guard or a helper that takes in the flour bags for bakeries. Izuku paused. Whatever makes you happy. 5. All I was ever worth was the crystals I produced even though they were useless. That meant I was only worth something if I could give something of some kind of worth. I thought that way too about myself. You? Hojo asked in shock before remembering the conversations he heard between him and Setsuno. 11. Even therapists need their therapist. I have my own therapist, but I don't see them as often as I used to when I was younger, Izuku admitted with a nod. He turned a soft expression to Hojo. Everyone needs some help. It's just up to that person to seek out help for themselves. That's why I never want to force anyone into talking with me. I want for them to seek out their own selves. And if they don't want to talk, I won't push it any farther than it needs to be. 1035. Hojo and Izuku talked some more in the office until it was a bit after lunch. They come out to see Setsuna and 𝗕𝗏 playing Go Fish while some music channel plays on the television. Apparently, 𝗕𝗏 had found a deck of cards which resulted in the two playing round after round of card games. 22. Izuku looked up to see the rest of the reform group come downstairs. He noticed how irritated 𝗬𝗲 looked while tongue-eye staring holes into his back, aware of any movements he made. He glanced at each of them before turning his attention to making lunch. He started to pan-fry the pieces of pork while working on fixing some rice in the rice cooker. It took some time to get lunch ready, but even with all that time, he still didn't hear many sounds from the rest of the old Yakuza group. All the sound he could hear was from the lowered volume of the television on the wall and the trio who were talking quietly to each other. As usual, they each took their dinner plates without much fuss. This time was different than other times since Hassaikai took his dinner on a paper plate and went back upstairs to eat in his room. He has never done that before, which made Izuku suspicious of what happened upstairs between the group. Maybe he could find the answer to why Kurono and Chisaki were staring at 𝗬𝗲 like he angered and confused them at the same time. While most of the Yakuza group were thinking about 𝗬𝗲's earlier statement, the infamous trio was talking amongst themselves about the reform program itself. With this whole reform thing, what would we do when we get out? He asked quietly, mindful to keep his voice down because Iranaka had sharp ears. 𝗕𝗏 nodded softly. I was thinking maybe we can start a cafe together or something. Just a nice, calm atmosphere. 33. That would be cool. Toya explained. You would be the cook, I would be the waiter, Hojo would be the guy who does the heavy lifting. 5. Hojo raised a brow. Heavy lifting. You know, the bags of flour and stuff. And you can help me with being a waiter, Toya said, gesturing with his hands. Doesn't that sound cool? 3. Hojo shrugged. If they even let us have our own cafe. We can afford to dream, especially with this whole thing. Maybe it is possible for us, 𝗕𝗏 grinned wide. 1. 𝗬𝗲 raised his hand, approaching the smaller figure of Izuku. Hey, therapist. I have a request. 18. The room fell into sudden silence. The trio turned around to see 𝗬𝗲 walking towards Izuku. Kurono suddenly started to pay attention. Even Chisaki stopped what he was conversing about to listen to what Rappa had to say. Izuku looked up to Rappa. Yes. What is it? Do you need me to adjust anything more to your liking? Plus Rappa barked out, fight me? Midoriya Izuku was just a college student heading for his degree to become a therapist when he was chosen to be under 𝗫𝗧's tutelage. 𝗫𝗧 saw great potential in his natural ability to calm others and the knowledge in his analysis journals that he still kept adding to even now when he is older. 𝗫𝗫 had secured him a job to work for all heroes, to be their friend to talk to, their therapist to trust. And he was thankful for it. He trusted 𝗫𝗧's decision. Izuku talked to children that are related to heroes that need someone to talk to, like Kuda Izumi. He got to talk to and listen to many heroes that he can now call his friends respectfully. Kirishima Idru, aka Red Riot, confided to him about his fears and insecurities. Yaoyorozu Momo, a Creati, often talked to him over tea about her struggles in her confidence. Ida Tenya, a Ingenium too, confided in him confidently about his past regrets, often the one about when he tried to take revenge for his brother. Tamaki Amajiki, a Sun Eater, talked to him about his confidence issues and anxiety. And there were many more. Izuku even got to talk to his old childhood bulky, the one who granted him his nickname Deku. Bakugo Katsuki, a Ground Zero, begrudgingly opened up about his nightmares from his kidnappings and how his inferiority complex got in the way. He didn't want to talk with him at first, but eventually softened from Kirishima's insistence. Once he opened up, he apologized to Izuku about his past ways, telling him that Bakugo thought he was looking down at him the entire time. 15 Izuku forgave him. He knew that Bakugo meant it from all the months leading up to it. All of his expressions and actions towards him softened up while the time passed. All of the patients he faced, no matter how guarded they were, opened up to him eventually when the time passed. Although Todoroki Shoto was the hardest patient he had to deal with, even though he would consider him his closest friend in the far future. The day Shoto came to talk to him was the day Izuku thought he would fail as a therapist. What? I'm Midoriya is. Izuku tried to greet himself. Yes, I know, Todoroki replied, sitting stiffly in the chair across from him. For Izuku blinked. And Todoroki-kun, what do you want to talk abo? This is really what I have to sit through. Todoroki said coldly. Yes. Izuku responded. This seems like a waste of time. Why would the others even bother to bring me here? Todoroki asked. Maybe they want you to communicate some feelings. Todoroki stared hard at him, or not. Todoroki scoffed before standing up. Izuku's eyes widened. Where a? Todoroki shut the door behind him with enough power to shake the door. Izuku face planted onto his desk softly into the hardwood to collect his thought. Give me the strength. Izuku groaned into the wood grain of his desk. 39 For Izuku got outside knowledge from Todoroki's old classmates and friends about him. From the information, it seemed that Todoroki used his fire sparingly. During their first sports festival, Todoroki used his fire during the cavalry race when everyone was coming for him for the 10 million point headband. But in every other match he didn't use his fire until Bakugo knocked him out after having a yelling match with him. He wanted to just use his ice, but Aizawa's teaching guided him to use both of his powers. Apparently, Aizawa really helped Shoto throughout his years in UA. He always watched out for him. 3 It wasn't until after Todoroki talked to their homeroom teacher that he began to open up more towards his classmates. They really worked with him to become his friend even though he was very quiet. Momo and Ida became his closest friends and Shinso joined their group after he replaced someone in their class. 24 Todoroki uses both his ice and fire as a pro hero, but his fire is noticeably a little less controlled than his ice power. Izuku had been researching him, trying to figure out what he could talk to him about to let him open up more. The weeks seemed to fly by with each session ending as quickly as it started. Todoroki would come in, Izuku would try to talk to him, and Todoroki would walk out without saying much to him. It took Todoroki about 2 months before he finally stopped his premature escape. Izuku was thoroughly surprised when Todoroki came in that day with an apologetic expression. Todoroki sighed, "Hello again. My classmates told me to stop cutting our meetings so short before giving you a chance. My apologies." Shoto bowed before sitting down at his seat calmly. Izuku blinked as he gathered up his notebook. Oh, it's all right. I understand that this might be a bit awkward for you. But that doesn't really excuse my previous behavior. Todoroki replied, so I want to apologize and try this therapy thing for real this time. Izuku smiled gratefully. So to start things off, what are you comfortable with me calling you? You can call me Shoto. Shoto said calmly. Okay, Shoto-kun. Let's get this session started then. The first talk they had didn't really dig deep into Shoto's life. He just opened up about some of his favorite things to do all the way to certain moments during his hero work that he felt inadequate. Izuku learned that he loved cold soba. It was his favorite food. He learned that Shoto cried every time that he was too late to save a life, how he always felt guilty that he wasn't there in time. Izuku learned that Shoto appreciated every moment he spent with his family, even if it meant going to an overpriced arcade with his brother only for him to laugh at a prize plush they won. He learned that Shoto had started to crochet with his mother. 18. He learned that Shoto did his best to always show up to charity events that give money to families that came from abusive households. Shoto loved to tease his sister by showing around her work to have her class freak out and seeing him. He learned that Shoto often donated to certain fundraisers and charities that helped out young children. He learned that Shoto loved to hear conspiracy theories, how his classmates would compare him to Elsa, and how his family always had dinner each week all together where they would take turns cooking. 26. For a short while, Shoto didn't show up to 2 sessions in a row. Izuku worried that he might be hurt or that he might have done something wrong in a previous session to drive him away. It wasn't until after hours when he was packing up that Shoto showed up with a somber expression. Apologies once again. No need, I was worried that you had gotten hurt. I'm glad you are okay. But if you don't mind me asking, why haven't you been here? Izuku asked, furrowing his brows as Shoto got quiet. Shoto looked up at him. Have you heard of quirk marriages? 16. Izuku's eyes were still widened as Shoto took a deep breath after he finished explaining everything. Everything from the marriage to how he grew up with the training that his father gave him. Wow. That is just whoa. Izuku replied. Shoto nodded. Well, Endeavor is a beach. Izuku said offhandedly. 32. Shoto laughed with a twinkle in his eyes, his hand coming up to his mouth to stifle his chuckles. He once tried to mellow out once All Might retired to try to appeal better to the people. But that niceness didn't really last long before he went back to his old ways of ignoring us. So eventually with my money, I bought us all a new house for us to live in. But he still is trying to control all of our lives in any way he can. Shoto responded. 13. Shoto, I can help you if needed. I know. A really good lawyer who has been waiting to get her hands on Endeavor for the longest time. 15. You could help us. Shoto asked before laughing bitterly. I don't think it would work. He has too much power, he has practically every lawyer in the palm of his hands. Trust me, you haven't met her to know just how much she could screw him over. So, would you give me the chance to help you and your family out? Izuku questioned with a hopeful tone in his voice as Shoto looked back at him. Shoto breathed out before smiling. I would love to see him go down. Thank you, Midoriya. Call me Izuku, Izuku suggested. Shoto softly grinned. Thank you, Izuku. 7. Shoto told him to meet at their new house for the first part of taking Endeavor down. So there Izuku stood with Detective 𝗬𝗁𝗁 on his left and his mom on his right. 9. Natsuo opened the door with a shirt that had front printed on it. You must be Midoriya. 32. Yes, that's me. I have 2 special people here with me that will help you with the case. Natsuo grinned. Great. Come on in. Fuyumi is making some tea for everyone. Oh, that would be lovely. Inko added as they all took off their shoes before entering. They walked in calmly with Natsuo guiding them to a welcoming solace in the living area with Rei sitting next to Shoto with their teacups in hand. Oh, hello. Is it time? Shoto asked upon seeing them. You must be the one who offered to help. Thank you. Rei said softly. Fuyumi looked up, handing over their teacups filled with calming tea. Detective 𝗬𝗁𝗁 said, I would like to speak with each of you in turn to gather up your true testimonies for the court evidence. Mrs. Inko will be representing you. She has won many cases and is very trustworthy. You have a great lawyer in your hands. 3. I'm glad to help, 𝗵𝗃 added, taking a sip of her tea. Izuku looked over at Shoto, who looked a bit nervous but was otherwise ready for what was about to happen. One by one, each of the family members gave their side of the story from when it all began, while 𝗬𝗁 recorded the whole conversation. Each question was answered truthfully by each member of the family. They each detailed almost the same story from different perspectives. How Rei tried to help her children as much as she could. How she felt immense guilt for ever hurting her son. How she felt even worse when she found out her eldest child wasn't heard from and was believed to be dead. 5. How Fuyumi always felt guilty that she wasn't able to truly help her brothers out because she felt like she was too weak to help them. She detailed how her older brother would always look after Shoto when it became his turn to train. One Natsuo told him about how Shoto was never able to play with them because he was always taken away for training. How Tia was always the one to help after each session when their mom wasn't near. How heartbroken he felt when Tuya was believed to be dead. He is still holding out hope that he is just missing and that they will see him again. 3. Shoto detailed how once he got his quirk, his father made him train despite his protests. His mother tried to help him, save him from his father's training. How he never was allowed to play with his older siblings anymore, only able to watch from far away as they played. How he couldn't remember his older brother clearly, only remembering their calming blue eyes that never resembled their father's. Once everything was finished, Izuku expressed his optimistic outlook with Shoto. We will take him down together. He won't be allowed to hurt or control you or your family anymore. Thank you, Izuku. Shoto looked up to the setting sun. I hope everything ends well. Have a good night. You too, Izuku said, waving goodbye so he could join his mother and the detective in the car. He waved goodbye to Shoto as they drove off. They all knew this was just the beginning to the takedown of Endeavor. 3. The takedown of Endeavor didn't come until a month and a half later when 𝗵𝗃 and Detective Tsukachi gathered all the evidence they needed. Even Nedzu helped out when he heard about the case through Izuku. 6. Unfortunately, Izuku couldn't be there for the actual trial to start. He got called into a reform program shortly before the trial was to start. Izuku seemed very excited about it since he went on a shopping trip to buy some paint for the rooms. When 𝗵𝗃 asked, he said that it was for them to feel more welcome while he pondered over shades of red. 7. 𝗵𝗃 smiled as she reminisced about the time she watched her son choose certain books and blankets for the house that would house all of the reforming villains. 𝗵𝗃 looked forward straight ahead as she walked down the main aisle with all 4 of the Todoroki family behind her. Rei, Fuyumi, Natsuo and Shoto walks behind her, settling down into their seats that were directly across the aisle from Endeavor himself. 2. Todoroki looked serious while his lawyer looked quite cocky in their expensive suit. 𝗵𝗃 glanced over to see their faces, touching the file filled with evidence that her son and the detective had gathered. The trial for 𝗳𝗏𝗁𝗍 has begun. One Todoroki's cocky lawyer went up first with practical no evidence and just his words. He went on and on about how 𝗳𝗏𝗁𝗍 is a pro-hero who is always working hard to save the people of this good country. He kept talking about how he was just strictly teaching his children to harness their powerful quirks. 2. 𝗵𝗃 walked up there with confidence as she talked about her side of the case with evidence in hand. She read out each testimony, making sure to show the judge that it was from the credible detective with a truth quirk. Todoroki's lawyer dug a deeper hole for himself by calling up the children, cleverly leaving out Miss Rei. He tried to tilt the court back into Todoroki's favor, but it didn't make much of a difference. 𝗵𝗃 went right up there and turned the jury more into their favor while a few others seemed to stick by 𝗳𝗏𝗁𝗍's side. The trail continued to go on for that whole week. Todoroki's expensive lawyers trying to bring up any point they could find to get him out of a guilty verdict, but with each time they tried, 𝗵𝗃 was one step ahead of him. 9. Finally, it was the last day of the trial where a verdict from the jury should be announced. They waited while the jury decided amongst themselves for several hours before they finally walked back into the courtroom with their answer. The judge opened the jury's decision in the envelope. 𝗳𝗏𝗁𝗍 has been found guilty of spousal abuse, illegal court marriage, and child abuse. 18. 𝗵𝗃 sighed as the judge read out every crime he was guilty of. She knew that she might not have gotten him for everything that they charged him with, but he would still face punishment that he deserved. 1. 𝗬𝗪𝗀𝗃 will get his hero license taken from him. A divorce will be finalized between Rei and 𝗬𝗃 by the end of the week, which will allow her custody of all her children. 𝗬𝗃 will have to stay away from them once he gets out of his jail time of 40 years. He has been placed under a restraining order against each one of his children and his ex-wife. He is to finish 450 hours of community service once he gets out. The judge finalized with a bang of his gavel. 47 After the trial, 𝗬𝗪𝗀𝗃, former pro hero, was taken away to a secure prison in 𝗕𝗁𝗂𝗃 cuffs that all inmates wore. Narrowed eyes watched through their visor as their old colleague walked away in cuffs before smiling at the happy family who had just been freed from his control. 8 Midoriya Inko got embraced by the 𝗬𝗪𝗀𝗃 family when Endeavor was finally out of sight. Inko had tears in her eyes which spread to each member of the small family. 4 Inko was excited to tell her son the news until she remembered that he must still be off for the reform program. They wouldn't mind if she popped in there to check on him, would they? "Hey, Mrs. Midoriya." Hawks greeted, flying down the stand beside her. Inko replied, "Why hello, Hawks. It has been a while, hasn't it?" "It has. Too long since I have had your famous cookies." Hawks commented, smiling. Inko laughed, "Hawks, do you know if the heroes would mind if I visited my son even for a short while when the reform program is still going on?" Hawks was silent before smiling up at the sky. "I'm sure they wouldn't mind if I escort you there. I'm sure that your presence there will help out more than Izuku. Hey, why don't we grab a pizza on the way too? You know, give them something to eat to smooth your surprise arrival." 9 Inko nodded, "Sounds wonderful. I do hope they have been eating well while in that house." Hawks looked to her, "I'm sure they have. But when you show up, I bet you will spoil them." "You would be right," Inko said as Hawks laughed. "It is too true. I feel like I will just adopt them." 3. Like you kind of did with me? Hawks asked, tilting his head. 34. Yes, exactly. Inko replied, "Now, let's go. We need to get pizza before going there and making sure it isn't basically frozen when it gets there." "On it. We are on a mission," Hawks said before rushing ahead of her. 3 Hawks landed her softly on the ground a good distance away from the door. "Will you be okay?" Inko smiled, "I'll be fine. Now hurry back. You can come to pick me up later." "All right, have fun, Mrs. Midoriya," Hawks said before flying good foot in the air as he watched her walk up to the door. Taking a deep breath, she knocked on the door to the house. She heard a few muffled voices behind the door before the bright green eyes of her son appeared before her. Oh, how she missed him, Mom. Izuku. Rei could only stare with her children back at Izuku when he announced what he was about to do. Which was the same reason why he couldn't be there for the trial. "Excuse me," Rei raised her hand softly, "can you repeat what you just said?" Izuku nodded, "I'm going to be a therapist for villains. It's to test out if a reform program will be beneficial." Fuyumi blinked, "And you are going to be with the League of Villains?" "Yep, Izuku, the same villains that kidnapped Bakugo." Shoto asked with a tilt to his head. "Aha," Izuku responded. "I even bought some paint ahead of time to customize the rooms and stuff. I got some things that they might enjoy as well as a few board games and some books." Natsuo continued to stare at him, running his hands down his face. "You are going to be alone in a house with a dangerous group of criminals that worked under the same guy that All Might fought years ago." "One yes. All 8 of them," Izuku remarked. Fuyumi asked quietly, "Even the bad touch one?" 56, everyone, Izuku answered back. "DMN. I'm not judging you," Natsuo started. "But..." Natsuo continued, "But... this is scary. Would they still be able to use their quirks?" "No, they have quirk cancellation cuffs on all of them. All 8 of them won't be able to use their quirks in the slightest. They will come cuffed and leave cuffed. They will only have the cuffs taken off when they are freed of the program," Izuku explained. 3. That's reassuring, Fuyumi breathed out. "It's nice to know that they are coming up with a reform program. This kind of program can help a lot of people," Shoto commented. "But I don't exactly like that they are starting off with the League." "I second that," Natsuo blurted out. "I know. It's not exactly ideal, but I like the challenge of it. I think I can get them on equal ground with me, so they can see a different perspective on things. Maybe they just need someone to talk to them without trying to change them so radically without hearing them out truthfully. I hope I can be a difference in their lives somehow. Even if the program doesn't work, I want to be able to say that I tried my best. And I want them to at least have the chance, Izuku explained. The siblings looked at each other before Rei smiled. We will be waiting to see your success, Izuku-kun. 1-3 Izuku missed the trial of course because of the program that he recently started. Rei knew that he wasn't there with them, but she knew that he would be happy to hear that the trial went smoothly. Rei was reminded of him when she was learning to cook katsudon from a recipe book that Inko had gifted her. I wonder if Izuku would be cooking for them in that house. Would they take turns cooking? She thought to herself out of curiosity as she got the ingredients ready. She worried over Izuku almost like her children, but not exactly. She worried that he could possibly get hurt even though she knew that he could defend himself in case. But she couldn't help but worry. Too sure, they have quirk suppressants, but what happens if they decide to overpower him? She just hopes nothing bad happens to him. But as she was slicing the pork, she smiled to herself. Or maybe the reforming villains should be afraid of him, she thought to herself. 11-3 Natsuo realized it had been a whole week since Izuku had started the reform program. He knew that communication was limited, but he could at least send an email like, "They didn't kill me yet, but when they try 𝗕𝗏 are going to be surprised." At least something like that, but he knew that this sort of thing would take time. 6 Natsuo sighed to himself as he read through the book in front of him. It's not like Izuku could get this done in a week or even a month. It would take at least 2 months or at a maximum a year. For although one part of him knew that Izuku would be just fine, he probably had at least one of them already on his side. He doesn't know how though. He guesses it might have something to do with the 𝗵𝗃 effect that he affectionately calls the friendship-making skills of both mother and son. 6. Izuku will be okay, he thought to himself as he continued onto the 4th chapter of his book. 3. For it has been almost 2 full weeks since the reform program started. Fuyumi was wondering what was going on as she graded homework. She wondered about what Izuku was doing with the reforming villains as she was grading papers from her class. Maybe the reforming villains are like her students. Maybe they just need some help or a simple push in the right direction for them to open up. The reform program hopefully won't last long. She was starting to miss the bright smile that Izuku wore most days. She remembered the brightest smile he ever gave was when he was showing off one of the pictures that a girl named Eri made just of him. 5. Fuyumi smiled to herself as she thought about what Izuku might be doing. He surely wouldn't be grading papers, but maybe he was writing down notes on how to better understand them. Maybe he was scribbling down any thoughts he had about the whole situation. 2. Either way, she couldn't wait to see what happens at the end. 3. It was the end of the reform program. It was the day of the trial. 1. Shoto froze once he heard the name 𝗬𝗏 being called to the stand. He heard his mother ate a sharp intake of breath as the villain previously called Danny walked to the stand. Shoto's eyes widened once he realized that the same villain who held the marble containing Bakugo was his oldest brother. 70. The one that everyone believed to be dead or missing at least. The one he remembered was one of the only ones that stood up to their father for him when he was too hurt. He was the one who helped Fuyumi to bandage him up from the burns and bruises that he got each day. He listened intently to the full hour where 𝗬𝗏 told of his own story about how everything ate to be. How he took the opportunity with the League to carry in Stain's legacy like most did. He wasn't even a true villain before he joined. He watched Fuyumi almost cry when he details how 𝗳𝗏 had known that his quirk was a danger to himself. 𝗬𝗏 continued on to detail how he wanted to do something before his quirk claimed his life for good. 3. Natsuo continued to watch with mostly a straight face. Natsuo remembered all the times that his brother had played with him whenever he didn't have training. Fuyumi remembered the times when 𝗬𝗏 protected Shoto when she couldn't do anything but cry out. Rei looked at the scarred face of the villain and could only see the bright blue eyes of her first child that looked up to her in wonder. Shoto and everyone continued to listen to the trial as it continued for the entire day. He was nervous when the jury went to talk amongst themselves in another room. He hoped that his brother would be reformed. After listening to everyone's story, he could see the spark in them that wasn't in every villain he had seen before. He knows that all 8 of them seem to genuinely want to start their lives over. Shoto cried out in silent joy when the 8 was cleared of most of their charges. He expected that they would have to complete community service. After the case was officially cleared, Shoto was following his family as they approached the reformed villain. Shoto could see that 2 of them already had their parents with them. Shoto watched as his mom, his brother, and his sister hugged him close to them affectionately. "You've gotten so much taller," Rei said with tears threatening to roll down her cheeks at any moment. Shoto watched as Natsuo and Fuyumi started crying. Shoto took a deep breath before approaching the embrace to join in. He tapped his older brother on the shoulder to get his attention. Hopefully he remembered him. Shoto looked up at his brother's blue eyes only to get reminded of the past when the same eyes would comfort him when he was feeling sad. "Shoto," Tuya said breathlessly. Shoto didn't know what to say, so he just quickly brought his brother into a long embrace that was overdue. He didn't know when he started crying. Maybe it was the familiar scent of a warm campfire that his brother carried with him. Either way, he didn't want to leave the comforting arms anytime soon. Tuya wrapped his arms around him tighter, understanding the silent message that his little brother was trying to get across. Shoto smiled through the tears that were staining his brother's shirt. Kurohige fixed his sleeve cuffs as he approached the police station after his shift ended to go talk to Detective 𝗧𝗂𝗁. Once he got there, he saw Eraserhead and Present Mike looking like they had a lot of mixed feelings about him arriving through the door. Midnight was in the background watching carefully. He tilted his head at the situation. Kurohige walked up to the detective and the 2 heroes. "What seems to be the problem, detective?" 𝗧𝗂𝗁 frowned slightly. "Your DNA charts have history." He remembered the flashes of memories he had. "What is it?" Eraserhead looked at him with tired eyes with a more somber tone to them. "Shirakumo," Kurohige's mind flashed a memory of white clouds before he realized something he didn't think. He had enough time to have dinner with Inko. 6-4 After politely asking them to wait a moment, Kurohige sent a message to Tenko that he won't be there for Bakugo's takedown, a text to Izuku to tell them about the plan, and finally to Inko to tell her that he won't make it to dinner. Once he received a form of confirmation, he nodded before putting his phone on silent. One Kurohige remarked, "Thank you for your patience. Now, what is this history? And Shirakumo? Is that name familiar to you?" The detective asked. Kurohige's mind flashed to white clouds and a blurry vision of a rainy night. "It seems blurry. I don't really know that name." "It's your name. Oboro Shirakumo." Hisashi said. Kurohige tilted his head. "Pardon? Your DNA matches Shirakumo's. He died around 25 years ago when we were on a hero work study with His Purple Highness." Hisashi explained. Aizawa winced at the memory. Shirakumo died after he got hit by debris. But here you are with his exact DNA. 3 what? Kurohige asked slowly. Hope brought a hand up to his forehead, or 𝗬𝗓𝗏 he thought was his forehead. His wisp hand stopped above his bright yellow eyes. "My head is so fuzzy. Do you need some painkillers?" Aizawa asked. "Yes please, if you don't mind. All of this trying to remember is causing me quite a headache." Kurohige breathed out, taking a pill and some water from Officer Sansa. "I don't really know much about the name. To be honest, my mind has been a bit foggy since the trial a month ago. For most of what I can remember, I thought I was raised by less than loving parents only for my mind to become fuzzy." One Midnight butted in. "What do you mean by that? It feels like the memories I had before were only nightmares that are covering up something. Each time my mind grows fuzzy, all I can see are white clouds. I keep seeing blurry visions, but I can never be sure what they mean." Kurohige replied, looking up at the detective. "I'm not sure if my memories are real anymore." 2. Are you open to having Aizawa try to jog your memory? We want to solve if you are Shirakumo or if there is any connection to how you might be missing memories. Kurohige shrugged. "All right. Who knows? It might help both of the sides have some closure. You get to see if I'm your dead friend and I get to see if my mind is playing tricks on me." 2. For the next moment, Kurohige was inside an interrogation room with 3 pro heroes on one side of the table while he was on the other. Aizawa was sitting across from him while Hisashi and Kayama stood more towards the door. As far as we can tell, your quirk seems to have been created out of multiple factors with Shirakumo's quirk as the base. Aizawa began to relay the information to him. So are you telling me I'm a Nomu? For Aizawa's eyes darkened a bit. You didn't know? No. I don't know. All I knew was that I was to be the protector of Tenko. Kurogyari answered honestly. So you care about him? Tenko? Hisashi asked from the side. Yes. It was my mission to look after him, but I felt more than just a mission with him. I felt almost parental towards him when I looked after him. Kurogyari answered Aizawa across from him. Kayama and Hisashi looked at each other while Aizawa prepared his next question. Aizawa's hair started to float up when he activated his quirk. Shirakumo, he was the type of guy who would go out of his way without hesitation to pick up an abandoned kitten that I couldn't pick up. I would always be the type who hesitated. But despite that, you were always pushing me forward. Kurogyari slightly stiffened as Aizawa continued. You were always so bright, always looking ahead without ever considering the consequences even though everything would be over if you died. Kurogyari's wisps began to wobble as he felt something come out from within him. What is going on? His mind is becoming even more blurry. One Aizawa continued, you know, both Yamada and I are teachers now. I've been really strict with my students. I wanted heroes like you. Heroes that could pull themselves forwards towards the future. I wanted you able to live longer. Kurogyari's form began to wobble even harder as his mind began to open up a memory. A memory so close he can just grasp it. Shirakumo, if by any chance you are still in there, let's all become heroes together. Aizawa yelled proudly across from him. Kurogyari's eyes widened. Aizawa said, you were a member of UA's Class 2A. We wanted to all be heroes together. We were like the Three Stooges of UA. Hisashi added in. Oboro Shirakumo. Kurogyari felt his heart beat faster as a single memory began to clear up in his head. A vision of a younger-looking Eraserhead and present Mike next to him while they walked down in a school hallway. He could finally see smiles behind the fog. Everyone gasped as Kurogyari's fog began to reveal half of Kurogyari's true face. Aizawa was already crying from his quirk use, but Hisashi looked to follow soon in Aizawa's lead. Midnight's eyes widened. She could recognize that face from anywhere, especially that band across his nose. Kurogyari began to stutter as his vision was becoming white at a slow rate. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, that's the last thing Kurogyari heard himself say before he blacked out. Kurogyari's eyes slowly opened before wincing at the amount of light. Hey, he is waking up. Tenko's familiar voice piped up. Izuku's voice spoke up. Hey, let's turn down the lights a little. I think it's bothering him. Oh right, Tenko replied before the sound of rolling down the blinds came from near him. Kurogyari opened his eyes fully to see that he was in a hospital room. Am I in a hospital? Kurogyari asked weakly. Izuku nodded while Tenko looked dramatically at him. I don't know, are you? 32, Tenko. Izuku frowned with a pout towards the pale blue-haired adult. Tenko replied, sorry, but you know I didn't get much sleep because I was worrying about him. Seriously, what did those police guys do with you? We got a call after we did the thing. You beat him up. Kurogyari titled his head. Tenko shook his head before grinning at him. Nah, but I did kick him in the ball. 5, huh? Kurogyari mumbled happily. Izuku smiled while fixing Kurogyari's pillows. We don't know exactly what happened, but you passed out at the police station after what they revealed to you. You are in Recovery Girl's office since they thought it would be best. Tenko is still a bit upset at them for making you faint. Hey, that must have overwhelmed him somehow to make him faint like that. I have never seen him faint in my life, so I was considerably worried, Tenko replied. Kurogyari's yellow eyes crinkled. Thank you for worrying, but they didn't harm me. Tenko questioned, then what did they do? Did they say something to you? They helped me uncover some past memories. My memory was altered so I apologize to you, Izuku. It seems like the last I confided to you about was only a lie to cover up the truth underneath it all, Kurogyari explained. It's okay, Izuku said while Tenko rested his chin in his hand. Did they help you find the truth? Yes, they did. Although I still don't remember much. I can only remember a few flashes of memories, not the whole thing, 𝗬𝗓𝗁 added. Tenko looked to the door. I heard them talking. They are trying to find a specialist in memory recovery with a quirk that can basically uncover memories that were long forgotten. I think the quirk was something like memory replay or something. Izuku nodded. Anyway, Aizawa told me to tell you when you woke up that it was your choice. Maybe you can talk about it with me in my office if you feel unsure about it or just need to reflect on it. You can refuse the memory replay if you don't want it. Are there any drawbacks? I don't want to forget any memories of my life now. I don't want to forget about Tenko or you or anyone, 𝗬𝗓𝗁 said, which caused Tenko to tilt his head at him. Tenko smiled while Izuku stepped up to quell his worries. Izuku explained, the only drawback is a massive headache from what I gathered from the person's quirk. The reason why is because the quirk works like a movie screen. It plays back your memories until the point where you last remember. It leaves you in a deep sleep and you wake up with all your memories recovered. After that, all you will have is a massive migraine at the most. 𝗬𝗓𝗁 nodded. I think I might go through with it. Who knows what I might be missing from my memory? And hey, I've been through a few hangovers to deal with a migraine. 5 Tenko got up from his seat to hug 𝗬𝗓𝗁 while he sat on the bed. Izuku happily joined the group hug with the two. 6 3 𝗬𝗓𝗁 then spent the next few days waiting a week while they prepared for the treatment. They apparently had to set up a good time for the person to come to meet them since they lived in China. 6 He spent this time hanging out with everyone. Magna wanted to schedule a girls' night out which turned into everyone being invited to have facials and their toenails painted. Somehow 𝗬𝗂 with cucumbers over his eyes was a bit terrifying. 30 He spent all the time with them to take his mind off what might happen. He wanted to get his memories back, he did, but he had a fear that was produced by his nightmares of him forgetting the people he grew to care for. Or even worse'em the people he cares for forgetting who he was. Each time he woke up from a nightmare like that, someone was always there to comfort him. Whether it be Inko right next to him or Izuku over the phone or Tenko over video call. 7 When the time finally came, Inko opened the door to Eraserhead, Present Mike, Tsukachi, and a middle-aged looking woman. Are you ready? Aizawa asked him calmly, waiting for a response. 𝗬𝗓𝗁 looked dive to Inko and then turned back to the tired-looking man. As ready as I'll ever be, 𝗬𝗓𝗁 answered back, allowing everyone to come in. Inko escorted him back to the guest room for him to lie down. The middle-aged woman entered the room when he was ready. Inko went to the kitchen to make some tea for everyone when 𝗬𝗓𝗁 looked to be calm. Tsukachi followed after her while Aizawa and Hisashi stayed in the room. 50 𝗬𝗓𝗁 released a deep breath before allowing the woman's hands to land on top of his head, the wisps surrounding her hands. 𝗬𝗓𝗁's yellow eyes slowly started to close as the quirk began working. The last thing he heard was something about Inko offering kitchen chairs to someone and 2 males' voices saying that they would like some to wait. 5 Come on, say mama, say mama. His mother said while holding up his phone to take a video. Papa. His mother sighed, I can never win at this game, honey, get the camera. His mother called out. His father questioned from another room, why? He's walking. And I'm missing it. 1 Yes. Now get the camera, honey. His mother said loudly as Oboro stumbled his way towards her legs. Oboro shouted, pointing his finger at the sky, Hey mama. Look at the sky. The clouds look so pretty. What do you see in them? His mother asked playfully. I see the great Monkey King. Just look. The Monkey King is riding on a cloud. Oboro added, pointing at one magnificent-looking cloud. 25 Oboro laughed before a cloud materialized under him. He was shocked at first before he began to laugh while both of his parents looked surprised. Look, I can be just like the Monkey King now. Oboro exclaimed before the cloud vanished beneath him. Oof. 1. What do you want to be when you grow up? 1. I want to be a hero. Oboro cheerfully said. 5. You seem to really like tonight's dinner, kiddo. His mother said, brushing his hair back from his face. I love sushi. This is now my favorite food. Nothing else can compete, Oboro said with rice sticking to his face which his father had started to wipe off with a napkin. 6. Hey, I'm 𝗬𝗏𝗏 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Nice to meet you. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 introduced himself to his class of one. One 𝗬𝗏𝗏 yelled out from outside the window, outrageous. Scandalous. Shameful. Let me on it. 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Is that any way to enter a classroom? His teacher complained as he strolled into class through the window. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 replied, yeah. Straight through the third-floor window in the middle of the rain. My cloud quirk is super handy for getting around. I don't give a DMN. Use the door like everyone else. One, sir? Yes, sir. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 returned with a relaxed salute. Stop stripping in class. Who said you could take it all off? 3 𝗬𝗏𝗏 said proudly, don't worry. My clouds cover my body in perfect censorship. And in this cloud is a charming little creature. 3 One of his classmates protested. You know. Come on man, there are chicks in here. Tada! 𝗬𝗏𝗏 exclaimed while pulling a cute kitten out of the cloud. 11 Hisashi proudly pointed to himself with goggles on. How about this? Perfect fit? You're wearing goggles too now. But Aizawa asked with an annoyed expression. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 threw an arm over Hisashi's shoulder. We can sell ourselves as a trio. 3-1. I bet the 3 of us together can solve any crisis thrown our way. Let's form an agency together. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 yelled as he walked down the halls with his 2 best friends with him. 6-2 Aizawa and Hisashi were sitting in chairs at the end of the bed, waiting for their old friend to wake up. Aizawa had a cup of coffee and Hisashi had some chamomile tea to calm himself down. It had been many hours since the woman activated her quirk. She said it would take a while, the longest time would be 2 days. Hisashi really hoped this wasn't the case while Aizawa was ready to wait. And as the sun started to set, Aizawa hit Hisashi's arm to get his attention. Hisashi looked back at him before noticing Aizawa's expression facing 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Hisashi turned to see the wisps turn lighter in color. The dark purple wisps slowly started to recede to form more along his normal body. They were still very present, but not as large as before. Then, the dark purple turned into more of a lilac or lavender purple as the setting sun's light hit him through the window. For 2 𝗧𝗵𝗲 finally opened his eyes to see that the sunlight had turned into the moonlight. He turned to see Inko next to him with Aizawa and Hisashi right next to her. Kyorage's old yellow eyes were replaced by a lighter blue shade that matched 𝗧𝗵𝗲's. 𝗧𝗵𝗲? Aizawa asked. Shota. Zashi. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 asked carefully, raising his hand up towards them. They grabbed onto his hand in unison before 𝗧𝗵𝗲 scrunched up his face. The lilac wisps covered his face mostly once again as he was hit with a painful headache. Ow, my head. 6. Here, I got you pain medicine already. You are just the sweetest, Inko, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 replied, taking the glass of water and pill from Inko's hands. So, I remember. Everything. Everything. 𝗓𝗓𝗓. The memory of the USJ was not a good time for me. Sorry, Shota. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 apologized. 3. No need. At least I have a cool script to remember it. 4. Heck yeah. Hisashi mumbled, which caused 𝗧𝗵𝗲 to chuckle. What do we? Dunno. Can we come in now? I'm tired of waiting. I can have the patience of a saint. Jean yelled out from behind the door frame. Jean, is that you? 2. It's all of us. Tenko corrected as they walked into the room. Mostly filing on the other side of the bed. Tenko was closest to him with Izuku behind him while Seiko stood closest to the door. Every one of his friends was there. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 peeked around to see Midnight in the hall, looking in with a smile. Namuri added, I brought them over. So, what do we do now? Do we call you a Kurogiri still or 𝗬𝗏𝗏 𝗧𝗵𝗲? I want to be respectful, Magna asked with her bob pulled back from her face with a pink clip that Himiko got her. How about Komajiri? It's a perfect fusion of the names. Himiko offered. 17. Hisashi hummed. Good suggestion. Jean agreed with a solid nod towards their friend. Komajiri shrugged. If it makes it easier, you can call me that. I'm comfortable with both, I am both of them after all. So, now that your memories are back, I think it's time for your friends to hear about our time at UA. Aizawa grinned. Should I tell them the cat cloud censorship story? 2. Jeez. Tell us. I want to hear all about the embarrassing stories in high school. Tuya smirked, leaning closer. 12-3 After the quirk treatment, 𝗕𝗁𝗁𝗍𝗁 started to become different in appearance. And that wasn't the only thing changing, his quirk was allowing the older abilities to come through just a bit. He couldn't generate clouds like old times since the gnome making process made his quirk combine with another, so he couldn't really do what he used to do. His wisps became a bit more bouncy, like when he tried to make a warp gate under the watch of Aizawa. It was like a regular warp gate, but it was shaped more like a rounded cloud. 2. The lilac wisp was more showed to his normal body than his old form. The wisps were still hiding most of him, but he could almost manipulate them to show off his face underneath the wisps. The yellow wispy eyes were replaced with a more blue color like his regular eyes were like, complementing the light purple wisps. When Aizawa went to erase his quirk, it showed off more of his face underneath. His white hair was now light purple at the roots with a slightly darker purple at the tips. His skin was noticeably paler, but that didn't slow down his goofy grin at all. For after another week of getting used to his new body, he went to talk to Izuku about it. He talked to him often now with all the changes in his life going on. Reconnecting with old friends, recovering memories, and basically becoming a new person. Hey, do you have plans for tonight? Tenko invited me to a movie night. Do you want to come? Izuku asked. No need. I have a few plans for myself tonight. 𝗕𝗁𝗁𝗍𝗁 smiled. 2. 𝗕𝗁𝗁𝗁 was cleaning a glass when 3 familiar faces walked into the bar. Welcome. 3. Hisashi with his long blonde hair down around his shoulders. He wore a smooth leather jacket over a maroon shirt and dark jeans. His glasses were perched on his nose as he smiled at the bartender happily. Aizawa strolled in next to him with his hair tied back into a ponytail. His bored eyes lightened up when he saw him and a trace of a smile was on his face. He wore a black long-sleeve t-shirt over a comfortable pair of sweatpants. Plus Kiyama was behind them with her red glasses on her face. She wore a nice dark purple dress with a black belt and dark gray flats. 𝗕𝗁𝗁𝗍𝗁 smiled as he raised up his shaker. Hey, you want something to drink? Fight. 𝗕𝗶𝗍𝗺, Toya, and Hojo said in unison just from the shock of Rappa's statement. 20. Izuku looked up at Rappa who was standing right in front of him. Izuku looked down at Rappa's shoes up to the wild red hair on top of Rappa's head. Alright, I'll do it. 41. Irinaka yelled out, What? Ting'ai and Shin glanced at each other before looking back at the chaos in front of them. Rikiya blinked several times before wiping at his eyes to see if he wasn't hallucinating or dreaming. 1. Sakaki muttered, Does he have a death wish? 17. Finally. Rappa yelled out, pumping his fists into the air full of anticipation. 6. I hope to be a worthy opponent. Izuku gave a single nod. Now, I won't start the fight without ground rules first. What? Come on, Rappa groaned. Fine, whatever. As long as I get to kick your butt. The first thing is that we are fighting outside because I do not feel comfortable with doing this activity indoors because of how many things can go wrong. We will fight outdoors where there is more space, Izuku stated. He thought about it for a moment before glancing back at the kitchen. Do you wish to fight with any weapons? Not just my bare fists. It's the most awesome way to fight. Rappa clenched his fists, already getting excited. I get to feel what crunches under my punches. Izuku blinked. Okay then. And finally, the limit of the fight. I am not comfortable with the limit of the fight or end of the fight only being called when one of us dies. But I don't want the fight to not last long. So are you alright with a time limit or a set limit to the fight as if one is too tired to continue? Rappa breathed out frustrated. He wanted to keep the limit at what he knows, which is the death limit, but he reminded himself that it would be what Chisaki wanted out of him. If he killed the therapist, it would be like he was working with Overhaul again. 8. He just hopes that this skinny-looking therapist can put up a fight. 40. Izuku rubbed his hand together. I will meet you outside in 10 minutes. Does that give you time to prepare? More than enough, Rappa said impatiently. He was already ready to head out the door and start fighting. Toya whispered low to the other two, Guys, we can't let Rappa murder Izuku. 26. 𝗕𝗶𝗍𝗺 nodded back while Hojo looked towards Izuku, more specifically at his arms. You know, I think Izuku might have a chance. For meanwhile, across the room, Kurono leaned closer to his friend's ear. Chisaki, What will happen if 𝗵𝗲 wins the fight? Well, if he goes back to his old fighting days, then we won't have to worry about the little therapist anymore. Chisaki looked towards Izuku's back as he disappeared into his bedroom to get ready for the fight. By then, we would just be worried about where to bury his body. 24 𝗵𝗲 was already outside by the time Izuku went inside his room to change. He was stretching out his limbs to be able to give a really good fight for his opponent. 6 Rikiya was watching from where he sat as he leaned his upper half against the wall of the house. Chisaki and Kurono ate themselves farther away from the others to stand along the wall of the house without touching the outside brick. Sakaki already claimed his spot by somehow climbing to the roof and sitting with his legs dangling down. 11 Irinaka was impatiently tapping his foot on the grass, crushing the little weeds under his foot. Shin stood up straight with his arms folded across his chest as he waited for the therapist to come out. Tengai started to look at the sky to pass the time, viewing the various shapes that the clouds made. 9 Tabe kept glancing at the door to check if Izuku was coming out. Toya wasn't any better, picking at his nails as he kept his ears open. Hojo was sure that Izuku wouldn't agree to a fight that he wouldn't survive. But if 𝗵𝗲 did plan on killing him, Hojo would step in and drag the other 2 with him as a backup. 3 After what only seemed like 5 minutes, Izuku walked out with an entirely new outfit to fight in. He was wearing a simple gray shirt with back gym shorts. Izuku's bright red shoes clashed wildly with the green of the grass and his hair. His hands were wrapped in white bandages that looked like gauze. 10 He looks like Christmas colors, Sakaki muttered, giggling to himself. 46 Izuku pulled a timer from his pocket, squinting while he pressed the buttons on the side of the timer. Is 20 minutes okay, or would you want to go for a little longer? 3 𝗵𝗲 cracked his knuckles. 20 is more than enough for me. I'll have you surrendering halfway in, are you sure? You seem very confident in your answer. Izuku tilted his head, looking innocent as he walked over to Shin. Can you time the fight for us? Shin looked questioningly at the timer in Izuku's hands like it was going to shock him or explode when he touched it. Carefully, he took it from the other's hand. He looked very confused as to why Izuku is trusting this job to him of all people. Nevertheless, he readied the timer. Ready? Izuku asked. 𝗵𝗲 cracked his neck. Hell yeah. 3, start. Izuku yelled out. Shin started the timer right as 𝗵𝗲 rushed towards Izuku. 3 Izuku started low right as 𝗵𝗲 aimed his fist to be higher. Izuku wrapped his leg around 𝗵𝗲's waist to spin himself to face 𝗵𝗲's back and start landing punches. He was able to hit near 2 pressure points before 𝗵𝗲 knocked him off. Izuku rolled onto the grass, flipping back onto his feet to face 𝗵𝗲 head-on again. 6 With a flurry of fists coming his way, Izuku couldn't help but dodge and also be awed by the amount of speed. Wow, you know so many techniques. I have never seen that move before. Izuku complimented before ducking his head to avoid the fist coming towards his face. He had to keep moving back to avoid the ongoing attack. 10 Yeah, I fought in the toughest underground fight clubs. You only came out alive if you won, 𝗵𝗲 proudly stated as he continued to throw punch after punch towards Izuku. Izuku kept dodging his fists with practice, only messing up a little towards the end when 𝗵𝗲 tried to grab him instead. Izuku used 𝗵𝗲's grabbing hand to his advantage by propelling himself onto his giant arm. He jumped towards 𝗵𝗲's back to cling to the wild mane of hair he had flowing down his back. 𝗵𝗲 screamed out from having his hair pulled before Izuku sprinted towards the trees surrounding the area. 17 𝗵𝗲 ran after him as the others stayed by the house with different expressions on their faces. Sakaki just swung his legs as he swayed side to side. Irinaka took the chance to go back inside without the therapist noticing, but Hojo glanced at him with a suspicious look on his face. For Izuku climbed a tree quickly to get away from 𝗵𝗲's long reach. So you fought quite a lot. Did it start any time when you were young, like middle school or more high school age? Or did you start later than that? 48 𝗵𝗲 whined, reaching towards where he thinks Izuku is. The leaves and branches kept messing with his eyesight. Why are you asking so many questions? I'm very impressed with your skills, especially since you are basically fighting quirkless. I find an appreciation is strong, respectable people who don't have to rely on their quirks all of the time. It makes things a lot more fun, Izuku answered, dropping down from the branches to bounce on 𝗵𝗲's shoulders, which caused the other to jerk forward from the movement. When Izuku landed on the ground, his opponent rubbed the back of his shoulders to pop something back in. 2. I don't like talking that much during a fight, 𝗵𝗲 mumbled before heading right back to where he sees Izuku. The therapist was waiting for him, stance ready as the other charged at him. I have been fighting for a long time, that's your answer. Hojo watched as Izuku and 𝗵𝗲 continued to trade punches and kicks. He thinks that Izuku almost landed a kick near 𝗵𝗲's weak spot, which made 𝗵𝗲 finally hit Izuku hard in the arm. But instead of the fight ending just like that, Izuku just jerked his arm up and continued to come at him. I need to go take a leak. Fill me in when I get back. 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗧 nodded back to him, not taking his eyes off the fight in front of them. 𝗕𝗏 just watched closely, throwing a subtle thumbs up Hojo's way to let him know that he understood. Hojo gave one last look toward the two sweaty men fighting before going back inside to relieve himself. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 had tried to get into Izuku's locked bedroom with no success. So he decided to look around the therapist's office instead. It only felt like a few minutes, but he was finding nothing at all that could be used. What do you think you are doing in here? What does it look like? I'm collecting data on the therapist so we can get out of here quicker. There is nothing in here besides his work. You're wasting your time, Hojo paused. I mean, I think he has a Rubik's Cube somewhere in his desk, but other than that all I see are papers here. 6. How would you know? Because I talked to him in his office before, 𝗧𝗵𝗲, Hojo answered as he walked into the room. There isn't anyone else's money for you to count here. Now let's get a move on, the fight was just getting good. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 struggled in Hojo's grip as he dragged the other man out of Izuku's office. He started straightening up when they backed to the door to make sure he looked okay before stepping out. Hojo followed right after him. 3-4 Rikiya was almost sure that 𝗵𝗲 and Izuku looked even more tired than he did, even though they were trying to hide it. He was watching closely, teaching the number of scrapes and bruises that started showing up on both of their bodies. 𝗵𝗲 was starting to get nasty scrapes on his knuckles from punching the wall of the house and the hard bark of the trees. It probably wouldn't have affected him as much if he had his quirk. Izuku was starting to show off bruises along his arms and scrapes on his legs. But even though they were both tried and injured, both of them were still standing at an even match against each other. 2 time. Shin shouted out, tapping the timer that Izuku had handed him at the beginning. Tighnai looked over his shoulder to see that the 20-minute time limit has indeed passed. Time's up. Izuku and 𝗵𝗲 looked back at him with two different expressions. Izuku looked surprised at the time that has passed, while 𝗵𝗲 looked mildly disappointed that he had to stop. 4. Wow, I haven't had that kind of fight in a while, Izuku commented, stretching his arms over his head. 𝗵𝗲 rolled his neck, tucking back his wild mane of hair. Where did you learn those kinds of moves? Oh, you know, I picked it up mostly from watching over people fight. And I got some moves taught to me from a few people I respect, Izuku answered honestly back to him. I hope that I gave you a good fight. Are you kidding? I haven't met a match that could deal with me for that long. Well, maybe those two heroes that I fought because they were really cool, but you were cool too. 𝗵𝗲 walked over to Izuku and clapped him on the back. Izuku's body moves forward a bit from the slap on his back. We should do this again because that was awesome. 32 Irinaka's eyes kept glancing over to each of them, wondering how in the hell that both of them were on such good terms now. The therapist wasn't even that hurt. Irinaka came up close behind Tighnai and Shin. I couldn't find anything in his office when I checked, and I couldn't pick the lock to his bedroom either. Then Hojo caught me when I went to look into his office, so I couldn't even explore that deep into the items there. One Shin scowled. How are we supposed to report to the boss like this? We basically have nothing. Tighnai asked, rubbing his chin in thought. How about we get information out of the therapist himself? What exactly are you implying? Shin questioned back. I'm saying that we ask more about him so we can understand more about our enemy. If we get to know more about him, we get to know more about his weaknesses that he might reveal unknowingly. Plus, we need to know what we are truly up against. We just saw him walk away alive from a fight with 𝗵𝗲. And even though 𝗵𝗲 is not our brains at all, he is our strongest brawn. Even without his quirk, He should have been able to win that fight easily against him, 𝗳𝗏𝗍 explained calmly. He looked over to the spot where 𝗧𝗵𝗲 and Izuku were talking animatedly about the moves they did during the fight. So what is our therapist's quirk? Shin kept watching how Izuku was talking while gesturing with his hands to 𝗧𝗵𝗲. His frustration seems to grow when he was confronted with the facts. They had knowingly lost 3 members over to Izuku's side of reforming. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 quit today and is already talking to Izuku like he is genuinely considering reforming as well, while the rest of them are looking like idiots. 3 had all started to form into a bubble of thoughts as Irinaka and 𝗳𝗏𝗍 continued to discuss what their next move should be. The therapist is making several of their bets go to his side of reforming while making the others look like idiots for not reforming. Therefore, Izuku was making a mockery of the Yakuza because of how easy it seemed to persuade their members onto his team. 9 The others are seemingly okay with this, but not him. Not Shin. He has worked so hard under Chisaki's leadership. He would not let some random therapist ruin what the Shie Hassaki has built for many years. He would not allow this to go on any further. Hojo was just fine talking to the others about Irinaka when he saw out of the corner of his eye that Shin was steadily approaching Izuku. Hojo got his friend's attention by slowly walking up to see what was Shin about to do. "Hey," Shin greeted. Izuku turned his attention to him. "Hello. Is there anything?" "Yes," Shin interrupted. "I want to know something." Izuku blinked. "Okay. What do you want to know?" "How in hell were you able to put up a fight with him? The only one who can handle him was his overhaul." Not anymore," 𝗧𝗵𝗲 rolled his eyes. 14 Quiet, Shin glared at 𝗧𝗵𝗲 before continuing. "Tell me the truth. I might not have my quirk now, but I know when someone is lying. So tell me, how did you win?" "Won? Well, I didn't win. It was mostly a tie between the 2 of us. How did you not end up being hurt more?" Shin questioned, still feeling the frustration growing inside him. 5 Through hard work and determination. I went through different training to learn more about self-defense and things like that. I picked up most of those moves from watching others fight though. And I used some of my analysis to break it down further, Izuku explained honestly. 3 What kind of quirk do you have to fight against him? Did you even use it at all? Shin asked, gritting his teeth. Hojo slowly walked up to get a head start on diffusing the growing situation. Izuku matched his stare evenly. "I didn't use any kind of quirk during our fight. We were on equal ground." 7 Shin pursed his lips together, stepping back from Izuku. "Do you have any more questions? Concerns?" Izuku tilted his head. "I always like to know so I can make this experience more comfortable." Shin sked, turning his gaze away from him. Hojo walked up beside Izuku like he was a bodyguard. 17 Izuku clasped his hands together calmly. "All right then, now how about we talk about dinner? Does anyone have any cravings?"